Franklin County Commissioners Budget Workshop, October 31st, 2017.
Yeah, there's donuts up there. If anybody wants one, please help yourself. There's a dozen of them, and I don't think everybody's going to have one, so. And yes, I did bring them for Halloween. And I asked if they knew Matt, and they didn't there.
Sure. But yeah, there's quite a different group there now.
Yeah.
Probably the only one that knows me is the owner.
I didn't ask him, I just figured it. You can tell there's a group.
It's been like almost 30 years since I worked there.
Your picture's still on the wall. Is it?
I didn't look.
You didn't use the men's room?
I didn't look.
Yeah. That's about right.
There's Play-Doh there, Brad, you go.
All right.
Okay. Where are we going to start, Matt?
I had solid waste up first.
Okay.
Page 81 in your legal science.
We can go wherever you want to go. Please.
Yeah.
Chapter 7.
That'll work. All right. Morning, Craig.
Good morning. I just had a few notes on the solid waste budgets. There is a draft for the 2017-2019 biennium for the CPG grant, which is the grant that really pays for a majority of the solid waste budget. And the draft right now is $200,810 for the period of July 1st of 2017 through June 30th of 2019. And of course, Department of Ecology requires a 25% match, so that comes out to be $50,203 for the county, and that portion is covered by the surcharge on garbage pickup in the unincorporated area of the county. Right now, as we know, there is no budget, so we're not sure how all that's going to play out. The state hasn't approved a budget. They have not provided even new contracts for the county to sign.
Yeah.
So we're kind of working. The good thing is we have some community development block grants that Sally has been able to help out with and work on to kind of occupy some of her time. She still is, of course, working on some solid waste stuff, but so really the budget is based on the preliminary numbers that we did receive from the Department of Ecology.
Was there nothing last year? Or 17, was there?
Well, we were working through the
17, 19.
2015-2017
Okay.
biennium, and there was money, now that she's been turning in, with that grant, you turn in quarterly, so she's been finalizing all of that and getting some revenue, had some revenue coming in, but right now, we're just kind of waiting on the state to get a budget passed.
Yeah.
So really, this is based on those draft numbers that we received from Department of Ecology.
This is not the funding, or is the funding that we hired, we had the crew go out and pick up.
That's part of it. It is under the solid waste budget.
Yes.
That's a different pot of money from Department of Ecology. That's their community litter.
Do we have it here, over here? We're gonna see
Yeah,
it.
that's not in the 152. That's actually under the O2, which is the solid waste probation work group. But we bundle it all
Okay.
together for the sake of budgeting, yes. Yeah, you guys got it up there.
The probation work crew is down here. So now the basin disposal revenues nowadays just got the line ahead of the 50,000, that is 13 funds.
What you see from them is, the 50,000, the 343.70s. Correct. The other thing too is under the local grants, entitlements, and other payments, which are the 337s that you see there, which are the Pasco, Connell, Mesa, and Clovis. We've been talking about those for a while. We've kind of held off. Right now, we were in the middle of a update to the comprehensive plan, and with that is the going through with the cities and putting together the interlocal agreements, getting those done, and it's important for that update to occur so that we have some good information for them. So that is still part of the process and should be fully implemented at the end of that, but we had to kind of shut that down at the prompting of the state with Department of Ecology, with the fact that there is no active grants yet without the budget. So we did get that process started, and we're kind of shut down on the update now, but that will continue once the funding is reestablished in whatever form that will be. So. Yeah, that'd be great. Have we ever looked at this? I don't believe there was any real major changes in this budget. Like I said, really kind of we try to work within the confines of the grants themselves.
Okay. Which one do you want to go to next?
Hey, Matt, is there anything that you can tell me about the used oil collection? You know, we had the was it Orozco or whatever the company was, has that all been finalized and closed out so far as you know?
Yeah, that has, and that's the other thing with this comp plan update is looking at viable, as you know, we're required to have that as part of our plan. And with the plan update, we're looking at a viable option for moving forward, and we'll be discussing that with the board as we get further in the plan.
Okay, thanks.
So, and it's good to bring that up because there is money expenditures in there for upgrades to facilities based on that. Because the company that we went with, it was all their facilities, and of course, those facilities no longer exist. So.
Yeah, and this probably isn't the time to dig into it, but it'll be interesting to see what we can come up with that would prevent a recurrence of the problem we had before. Because I have yet to figure out how we would be able to track what people are bringing in for used motor oil and dumping it, and without testing, it just leaves the system wide open. So I'm sure we'll cover that another day.
Yeah,
It'll be tough.
Yeah, it is. Is the board ready to move on, or?
Yeah, please.
I believe next on the agenda was county roads. Is that okay?
Yeah, the 150 budget. Page 76, I think.
One thing I want to say about the county road fund, moving forward from we do plan on, with this budget, anticipates us paying back half of the loan that the county road fund got from the emergency reserve. So 450 of that, and so all of our numbers are based on that. And of course, you'll see in the expenditure side, we also show the other 450 being paid out in the 2018 budget. Getting that paid back, we want to get that paid back as soon as we can. So we're certainly keeping a tight eye on revenues for this year, and doing a lot of estimating on the amount and level of work that we're going to get completed this year, so that we have some good projections moving forward.
Anything new from FEMA at all?
Well, we cleared the first couple of hurdles, and they sent us back the next phase for us to get, hopefully, things obligated. But I hesitant to give any sort of solid time when we might see any money, because I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I don't
just hard to
think
say
the feds know yet until they appropriated some more money, it sounds like.
Yeah. So.
And that's important to note, is we don't show any revenue from FEMA in this budget. We would be coming back to the board when and if, because we don't really know what color that money is even going to be to know what budget lines to even put in. As you go through the BARS manual, there's probably a couple of different, we don't know if it's Department of Military, if it's how that's going to come in, if they're going to funnel it through the state. We're just not sure how that, so it's very difficult for us. Nobody really had the answer for us either, so we're going to kind of do a wait and see. But Craig and his staff have done an amazing job trying to get them, getting them everything they need, and And, that's all we can say is Katrina kind of messed it up for everybody. There was a lot of fraud that went on in the aftermath of Katrina, and so now they're putting real tight eye, and it just doesn't end once they obligate the money. They've had situations and they've documented where they've gone in and wanted jurisdictions to even pay them back because they went in and looked at things again and did, so even, I think what it is, 3 years down the road, or they can come in, and even if things change on their level, they can impose, it seems like they can kind of impose that same scrutiny 3 years down the road on us. So we're making sure that we document everything to the nth degree so that if they do come back in 3 years, there's not going to be that chance that they're going to ask us to pay up there. So.
Okay.
So did I understand that right? $450,000 coming out of the road chip fund is going to go to pay back the loan that we gave?
No, County
Nothing like
Roads,
that,
County
okay.
Roads got a $900,000 loan. So
Yes, yes.
And so that's what we'll be paying back.
The 450.
Yep,
Yeah, that half then
Yeah,
is going to get paid back out of your fund.
this
which-
year.
Yes.
And then next year, we haven't budgeted for the other.
For the other 450, that's how you're going to pay it back, okay?
Yeah.
And that 450 comes from just revenue, I guess, just,
Yeah,
okay.
And Matt, where is that 450 on this sheet?
that would be under the expenditures,
On page 79.
yeah, down towards the bottom.
Okay.
So with that, of course, is there's two lines for that, the 590, 295, 100, which is the interest, and right around 2,000, and then the payment is at the 581, 10, 150.
Okay.
But just going down through the revenues, we don't really have any major changes as you get kind of into the federal indirect grants, and that, of course, kind of changes as we get funding for specific projects, federal funding, and so those numbers tend to change a little bit from year to year. But for the most part, everything else stayed the same. I will say that we did, for our budgeting purposes, we did on the property tax, we are recommending the 1% for our increase for the county road levy, which, as you can see there, comes out to be approximately 30,000, a little over 30,000 additional funds to the county road fund. So our property tax includes the information that we got from the county assessor, and then anticipating a 1% increase. And of course, based on the board's decision, we would just say that we'll make whatever adjustments are necessary there. So I do want to let you know that is included in there, in that revenue stream.
Does the $3,350,000 include a road shift coming out, or is that just the gross up with the road shift?
No, we didn't anticipate, or whenever we come into budget, we want to show the board everything so they can make those necessary decisions. What we did anticipate was them continuing to do the diversion for traffic policing, and so that is included in our budget, and that's on the expenditure side. And that's should be the 473. So if that changes, then we'll need to make whatever adjustments.
It hasn't been removed. No.
Yeah, we haven't removed that. So we do anticipate an assigned fund balance beginning of about 808. We do have some information here where, like I said, we're constantly updating our numbers. when we're looking at a cash, an assigned fund balance or a beginning fund balance, the 708, but I'm still comfortable with the 808 because these are still so. And regardless if he does come in more at 708 than 808, we'll make the adjustments internally anyways.
You got your new gas tax printout yet?
Yeah, yes, and I do want to, I'm glad you brought that up because I do have this highlighted on my sheet. There's that multimodal transportation that didn't get included in this, and so we need to add another line that wasn't in the preliminary budget that we submitted. That would be under the 336, which is the state entitlement, impact fees, and in lieu taxes, and the BARS number for that is 336-00750, and that's multimodal transportation. And the numbers that we received on that, they're from the state is, and of course these are their estimates, is 264,450.
What was that number again, Brent?
264,450.
Okay.
And then we did get the estimates from the County Road Administration Board for the motor vehicle fuel tax, and that's the $2,889,000.
Okay.
So you can see that that does increase our revenue by the 264,450, and brings it up to the new revenue number of being $12,941,991, so $12,941,991.
As far as the FEMA money, would you be interested in putting in a line in the budget with an amount on it? I know you don't know the budget line that it would be, but then, I mean, just putting in essentially a placeholder for it, but then you'd receipt it into the correct line.
Yeah, it's either that, or when we get it, we would, as we get it, we anticipate we could, yeah, I mean, we could do that, or we could come back to the board and we'd have to do an amendment, a budget.
And just, my thought on that was just to avoid that later on.
Yeah, we're not opposed to that if the board would like to see us do that.
You would just enter another line and a placeholder in there for now until the revenue shows.
We'd enter in a line that we thought it probably would be, I think, and then if it ended up being something different, then we receipt it into the more appropriate line. But yeah, it would essentially be a placeholder, I guess.
Keith, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it makes budgeting during the year a little easier, and I don't think it confuses.
Yeah, I guess our concern would be is if we don't get it, then it really changes the outlook of our budget. That would be the only concern. You're showing it as revenue, but if you don't actually get it, that can be a huge impact. I don't know that we would change. It would be put our budget out of whack, because I'd be real hesitant to show it as to also make the expenses match. That would be the only downside, because we don't know. I mean, that's the reality. I'd like to think so. I'm always a pretty positive person, half cup full. I'd like to think that we would get it, absolutely. But
If you put the expenditure in your budget, you're planning to pay it whether you get the reimbursement or not. So it makes sense for the expenditure to be in there. If you receive those funds, it'll just flow through to contingency, right? It'll just flow through to the reserve account. It'll go to you, but then it'll be paid back to the reserve account.
yeah, 400. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we plan on paying 450 back this year without receiving it. So we just internally have made a lot of cuts and purchasing moratoriums to make sure that we can get that fund as healthy as possible before 2018.
I'm just wondering, because you're essentially a pass-through for the money, that would it make sense for it to be shown as a revenue to the reserve account instead?
It's a loan repayment,
Yeah.
not expenditure.
we could certainly show the 450, we can certainly show, I would think, put it as a placeholder and put in 450, and it would offset that expenditure back to the effectively doing what you're talking about.
There's a few different ways you can do it, but I hear what you're saying, is you don't want to show that big revenue line in case it doesn't come in, it really disrupts your budget in a negative direction.
Yeah.
If you have the 450 expenditure in there, but you don't record the revenue, then if things don't play out as expected, then no harm, no foul. If the revenue does come in, then it improves your budget.
Yeah.
It's kind of a half, as you say, cup half full or half empty, how you want to approach it. But since the money is eventually going to the reserve account anyway, I'm just wondering if it makes sense to show it as a revenue there rather than in your budget where it's just a pass through. I don't know. That's why we have budget guys. They understand this stuff better than I do.
The technicalities is really a prior year revenue, right? Because all the work's been done. So if we receive the money next year, it's really financial statement wise, 2017 revenue and expenditure.
Yeah.
I don't care. Whatever's legal.
I think that's a good approach. Like I said, we do have an expenditure of 450, which is paying back the second portion of that loan, and I would think that if we put in a placeholder and we put 450 in there, that certainly effectively does what Commissioner Peck is talking about. It shows that you have the revenue and you have an offsetting expenditure for it. That is a good way to go, I think.
More transparent.
Yeah.
Whatever is accurate and trackable.
Yeah. So we'd be willing to do that. We'll see if we can locate what bars number we should anticipate using, and we can do that. And is everybody agreeable with that?
Yeah.
It's okay with me as long as it keeps us legal and transparent.
Yeah. And the state auditors like it.
With everything, like I said, there wasn't any major changes to the revenue. Those were just the areas I wanted to pull out that talk about was the extra 264, 450 for that multimodal transportation.
And Matt, why is that so much more than previous years?
It's based on the legislature. I have the information on it here. It started out as a specific amount, and then for 2018, it goes up. It's a statewide. That's a statewide. Then it gets distributed using the same percentages as the gas tax. So there was a pretty large increase based on the legislative decisions that were made.
Okay. New legislation.
Yes.
Okay.
So which one is that you're talking about?
Fair enough.
What number?
20. Look on the dark one over there is 2437.
Okay, I got it.
This.
Yeah, got it right there.
Here.
2437, I got it. 2437?
Correct.
Right there. Yeah, look at the top. Okay. Yep, got it right there.
876.
Yeah, I got it there.
And I may be getting ahead of you because you may be wanting to adjust some of your other expenditures because of that 264, 450, but otherwise, did you want to put that into the ending fund balance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did put the 264, 450 in ending fund balance as well when we go to the expenditures.
So the DLM though, why is that so much higher than the past? Is it because of our dune for dunes? DLM?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It's just a room.
Yes, and then we got another $140,000 from them too.
Yeah, that's
They
right.
wanted some extra fencing in the OHV trail, so they kicked some more revenue out.
Right.
Like I said, those numbers in there really are dictated by what we anticipate being able to actually getting done and getting reimbursed for on any given year. And we did, of course, want to be we wanted to be turning dirt in this year, but, you know, it's one of those things, the feds decided they needed to open up the environmental side of it again because of some slight changes to alignment and also the right-of-way.
Yeah. It's always
Acquiring right-of-way is really hard to anticipate how that's all.
Is that finished? Is that finished yet?
We've got one more piece,
Okay.
and it sounds like we're homing in on the last part of that. They're just discussing.
Is everyone happy that you
Seems
purchased
to
it
be.
from? Good.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, Premier might be,
Yeah.
but they're on board, so
American.
so we're anticipating that they're the ones that haven't signed yet, but they're
They've been pretty difficult along the whole works, haven't they?
right now.
Is that?
They've been pretty difficult along this whole,
Oh, yeah, I mean, I think it's tough when you got management, you got different layers of management here that's working on behalf of an LLC in Chicago, so.
corporation
There's
back east.
a lot of back and forth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But ultimately, they've been, you know, even in phases in East Foster Wells and Pasco Clovis, they've been good to work with. They're certainly pro county and pro improvements to our road system. So, like Craig says, it's really one of those things that we try to work really hard with everybody that we deal with, and really the mitigation of damages, and those damages typically do deal with alterations to their circles and how they irrigate. And so we work really hard because we like to try to get to a point where there's, if we can, have no net loss as a result of our projects, and we've been pretty successful in that. So because of that, it takes a little time to make sure everybody is really clear on how the alterations are going to take place to circles and irrigation to make that happen. So then you bring in irrigation companies. So.
Okay, anything else from the revenue side?
Matt, on the revenue side, no.
On the expenditures, you had something, Commissioner?
Well, it's probably jumping ahead a little bit. A lot of the forecasts I'm reading for this winter suggest it's likely to be a lot like last winter, which was a little heavier than we're accustomed to, and I'm just curious if that was part of your thinking when you were planning for sand and de-ice and all that. Did you budget for a normal year or for a heavier than average like last year?
Last year was gave us a good picture of what levels of sand and de-icing products we needed. So we certainly used this last winter as a template. Absolutely.
As I'm looking at 16 actual for anti-ice at 10.8, and your 17 working budget's 30, and 18 I see is 30, plus it looks like an additional request for 5, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing that product cost has gone up, supply is probably down or challenged a bit because of that, so just trying to give you a public plug for thinking ahead, Matt.
Yeah.
I can see it in the numbers.
We have laid in winter sand, and I will be here tomorrow to bring the winter mag chloride award to you. So we should be sufficiently bunkered up, or at least to get a start.
I see you got an extra 45K in for snow plowing.
Yes. Just You guys know I did change the assigned fund balance on the expenditure to 508 by that, so it came up to 513,307, and then we'll talk to you guys about the 450. Thank you.
So, if you look at the expenditures and you look at the revenue, it's pretty close, right? Pretty balanced.
Right now, we're balanced.
So what does that mean for any kind of road shift? Zero at this point, what you show here?
You know what, like I always tell our staff, we manage the budget that the board approves, and we're happy to do so. So
So if it doesn't get shifted, you'll spend it, and if it does get shifted, you won't.
cut.
That's correct.
That's what I want to,
We'll make whatever adjustments are necessary to that. As we go down through here, you know, there's always going to be slight changes, you know, based on emphasis. Some of the emphasis that we do in some areas is kind of every other year. And so you'll see some minor drops and raises in some areas. The big one that I want to kind of point out to you is this year we put $1.4 million into gravel replacement. And that's really us going out and trying to effectively upgrade our gravel road system systematically.
So Matt, I was just about to ask you about risks and opportunities, because your budget's got a lot of lines. You've got a lot of flexibility in there. Maybe you don't need as much sand, or you need more gravel, or you need this, you know. So obviously you can't predict all this stuff. But when you step back away from the budget a bit, there's always a few things in there that maybe make you a little nervous. And there's also a few things, like you talked about with the gravel road, where you want to make a significant effort in the area, so you've dedicated significant resources. I wonder if you could just continue with what I would call the opportunity piece. You just identified one, getting on some gravel road work. So if you could speak to other opportunities that you're looking to take advantage of, and then maybe speak to areas of risk in this budget that are unavoidable, but just things that you might want us all to kind of keep an eye on. So opportunities and risks, because, you know, at the grassroots level, there's a lot of flexibility here. I'm looking for the bigger picture.
You know, I think looking at our budget, most of the items on here that you see are there really isn't a lot of risk or whatever. The effort really doesn't change. There are those big areas. The risk for us, of course, is always the unknowns, like winter, what the winter brings us, and those numbers can be incredibly high, or they can be lower if we have a good winter. So those are areas that we look at.
And you've mitigated that by bumping up some of these numbers, so that's good. So in terms of opportunity, gravel, any other special efforts for this season that are reflected in the budget? I think the gravel's a great one. It's long overdue.
Yeah.
Anything else? Probably isn't a lot of budget room to do much else.
You know, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we always are looking for opportunities in areas to do some, and some of them we've identified, like some intersection work intersections that we could be looking at, and
maybe some special chip seal efforts or anything?
Chip seal, that's what I want to this was one of those years where we actually cut chip seal, and you know, there's always probably a little chip seal you can do, but we want to get to the point where we can actually alternate, where we're doing chip seal 1 year and gravel replacement, because those are really two items that take a lot of materials, and materials really account for majority of the cost there. I'm not saying we're there yet, but we're working to get there, and this is a year that we felt we could, especially based on the winter that we had, it was probably more important, actually not probably, it is more important that we focus on getting those gravel roads healthy again, because
you got a gerbil in your pocket? That's what it sounds like.
because as much as our paved roads took a hit, our gravel roads really were the ones that suffered from the winter and really are the most susceptible to another bad winter. So that's why we removed the money from there.
So what I think I heard you say was we didn't do as much chip seal last year as we would like to, but we're still calling it a chip seal year.
Yeah.
Next year we're doing gravel, and then the following year you'd anticipate going back and doing more chip seal.
Correct.
So that's kind of the opportunity side. On the risk side, I could see one risk, the board taking a large road shift. I could see unanticipated costs with Juniper Dunes or some other project, but do you see any other large risks that might pop up? No particular areas of concern?
I don't
You don't have
really
any big
other-
motor graders that you're worried aren't going to make it through another year or
No.
anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Like I said, I think you can see I think what we hope is when you come in here, and we're always willing to point them out, is you can see where the numbers are and understand where when budget decisions are made, where we would make cuts to be able to make cuts, and also where we would also be able to add some work to it, because chip seal is something we certainly could do, and if we did see some of that revenue coming in FEMA, that's something that we would want to look at, maybe doing some roads, not a lot, but
Well, the numbers, if you could get your head around all of them,
yeah.
simultaneously do tell a story, but it doesn't really give us a picture of what's in your head in terms of what keeps you up at night. I mean, if I were you, one of the things that'd be keeping me up with respect to this budget is FEMA deciding that they don't have the money or they're not going to pay up.
Yeah.
Or they're going to stretch it out over 10 years. Or the board might decide to take an unusually large road shift for some reason. I mean, those are the kinds of things that I think represent risk to your budget that are, above the grassroots level, because, any one of these smaller ones could adjust 50%. It's not going to change the world.
Yeah.
But if FEMA didn't pay up, or we took an unusually large shift or something else, those really could affect your program and directly impact the opportunity side of doing a lot of gravel work, for example. So just kind of trying to take this up to 30,000 feet and say, okay, big picture, what are the things you're concerned about? What do you see as the risks and the opportunities? And it sounds like we've covered most of it. But that's, at least for me, that's a lot more helpful. If I start getting down into the weeds of your budget, I worry about losing sight of the bigger, more important things that I think we should be focused on.
Yeah.
I just trust that the little stuff you've got a handle on.
Yeah.
And the big stuff too.
And
but-
I appreciate you saying that, because those are absolutely the concerns that we have, ones you brought up. Yeah.
Any others that come to mind? State changing their mind on the multimodal dollars?
They'll change their mind there, but they
Okay.
could, yeah.
I do want to say, though, I think you've done a real really good job at looking at everything, because the gravel is one of the biggest things I think that really was good to do this year. Because I've heard a lot of complaints about that, and you can see it driving out there. So I do think you are looking good. I think Commissioner Peck is saying, and I agree with him, it's good to see that picture and make sure you got it all covered. And
Our gravel roads
risk.
it's tough. You're talking about roads that were built in the 1940s, late 1940s, early 1950s with the Columbia Basin Project. The ones that are in the unirrigated areas have been around since they were started out as wagon trails in the 1800s, early 1900s, and we have records of all those. And certainly all we've been doing over time since then is just maintaining them, as opposed to really looking at what it takes to build a gravel road right. And so really a lot of times we're chasing our tail, and budget's a big part of that. If we can actually go out and rebuild these roads and actually build a good subgrade, put good base material on top of it, and then put good rock on top of it.
So it is more than just putting gravel on there. You got a lot to do, the base and everything.
When you go out there and measure the depth, and you got less than a half a foot of rock, it actually should have about 12 inches to 16 inches of rock.
Well, you know what you call a gravel road that doesn't have a good substrate?
Yeah, I know,
The future gravel pit.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is putting gravel and pushing it down,
Push it
pushing it
down.
down, pushing it down.
So, how many miles of gravel road do we have left?
We have approximately 400, a little less than
400?
400. I think it's 380.
387, something.
387, yeah. I usually just round it up. We got 600 feet
Yeah.
of gravel. You know, it's part of the life cycle. Gravel roads have a life cycle too, and part of that life cycle is re-graveling them on occasion. They need to be resurfaced just like a paved road does. So, and then I think maybe, that's an area that I personally want to get kind of focused on, is get that life cycle of the gravel roads synced up so that we are revisiting this and get them keep them up to snuff in their life cycle.
The good thing to remember about that is, just adding on what Craig's saying, is if we build gravel roads right today, the opportunity to convert them to a BST road in the future is a lot more viable and a lot less costly, because then you have the good material there. You might just be supplementing some rock and then being able to go through and shoot it. Right now, theoretically, if we're going out there and just putting a BST over our existing gravel roads, we're really kind of throwing money away. We really have to rebuild them anyways. So all of this is kind of moving together, because the ability, once they're constructed right and you have a good gravel road, then part of your BST or your chip seal program, it becomes a lot easier to add some of these gravel roads as part of that. Go out there, supplement them with a little bit more rock, finish blade them, and then you can put a couple shots on those. That becomes more cost effective, because we're really doing it at the same time. You get basically the economies of scale in that respect. So
Then you get out there, and especially out in the dryland area, you get in some of those roads that get used basically once a year to haul the grain off the. And the ADT is between nil and nothing, but it's still, and like I say, they're built for 10-wheelers, and they're running tractor trailers with pups on it.
Yeah,
So-
it's a system-wide problem. I mean,
So if we ask for a road shift, is that going to come from the gravel road?
well, we'll have to look at it and see. I mean, right now, it's
Dime from each line.
what we're hoping is that would come from our FEMA payments. What we can't do is we can't guarantee that that's going to come in. So in the meantime,
Well, your FEMA payments are already committed, Matt. The road shift can't come out of there. They're committed to repay the loan.
Right.
well,
Hopefully you get more than that from FEMA.
we're hoping more than that. What we borrowed was $900,000. We haven't had to borrow any more, and we're hoping that we're about $2 million more than that.
We submitted about $2 million, and that's about 75 cents on the dollar if all of it goes through, and that's a big deal.
You think the state will step up then with the?
They said it's been common in the past that they'll pay about half of that remaining 25%.
That's what I've always heard. FEMA 75, state 12 and a half,
Right
and
now,
local 12 and
the
a half.
legislature's kind of
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I'm very conservative. I just have a hard time counting money I don't have.
That's right.
I think we've hammered that pretty well. What else we got?
So Matt, one of the risks that you didn't touch on, and Craig spoke to it, is that the state in the midst of McCleary doesn't come up with the 12 and a half. And that's significant money.
Yeah.
Where are we going next, Matt? Shows a break here. Anybody need a break?
How are we schedule-wise?
15 minutes behind, 20 minutes behind maybe.
Breaks at 10:15.
Public motor vehicle fund. I'd say just keep going.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Motor vehicles on 116.
Do you have anything else on the flood control or anything of that needs discussing?
I think so. On the flood,
Isn't that part of your budget, the flood control,
no,
151?
that was actually, now being managed by administration, I believe, and facilities.
Okay.
The flood control fund.
Facilities where we talked about it the first day.
Okay. Paths and trails,
As the trails is, we're showing $107,700 for a beginning fund balance, showing the interest on that, and then any transfers in by the county road fund, that's required. It's based on a percentage. It's a statutory percentage of the motor vehicle fuel tax that we receive. And that money there can only be spent for what they call special paths and trails. You can't spend it on sidewalk projects adjacent to the road. You can spend it on paths, separated paths and walkways and stuff. And so we do have some areas that we could spend that, and that would be just used to supplement other major projects that we may have, like in the Basin City area. The first phase, which is really just the lighting in the intersection, none of this money could be used, but depending on what we do once we get past the sidewalk, if we do a separated path or something like that, there may be some opportunities there for us to use that as kind of part of the full funding package.
so it looks like you got about 120 there that could be,
Yes.
okay.
And that's one of those things, once it goes in there, you're supposed to try to spend it, within 10 years. So every new 12.5 we put in, or approximately there, the clock kind of ticks, because the whole idea is to do that. So Craig and his staff, they've got a lot of plans coming up to be able to utilize this money.
How about park acquisition and capital? I see there's almost like 140 in that.
Yeah, that's now managed through the planning and building department.
And Bob, what line are you on here? I'm on page 84, and
I'm 85 right now with the park
on
acquisition.
paths and trails, I'm not seeing 101,000 that I thought I heard reference.
107.
Oh, is it 107?
I see a bottom line, resource account total of 128.50.
Yeah,
All right.
that's the total.
But Matt, you referenced either a 101 or a 107, 101,000, 107,000?
Yeah, 107.7 is what we're.
That's your beginning fund balance?
For beginning fund balance, the interest, and then the required transfer in. If the county road department doesn't spend any money from their budget for special paths and trails, we're required then to do a transfer in. So.
Okay. And then where Bob was going on the park acquisition.
What color of money is that?
That actually comes in with the permitting through the planning department, and it's consistent with the city of Pasco's plan for parks. So we're going to be looking at that through some of our updates on how.
You and I have had this discussion about why we charge a park impact fee when we've gotten ourselves out of the park business, and where can we lawfully redirect that money
Within the UGA, that can be going in on projects with the city of Pasco for parks. Outside the UGA, which is that flat 50, that has to be done in the unincorporated areas, so we're not quite sure on those. Those could be maybe like used for doing some work in the future, say in Basin City. But you're right, since we kind of got out of the park business.
Well, we didn't kind of get out of the park business. We got completely out of the park business. And at one time, we gave some money to, what's the state park, Lions Ferry? And we've talked about it for other uses, but I'm inclined to think that we ought to quit charging a park impact fee in the unincorporated areas. And in the incorporated areas, either feed that money to the city of Pasco or stop charging it there as well. So if you just kind of think about that for a future discussion.
Yeah, we're looking into all of that. I can't tell you right now whether park impact fees are even required under GMA, but if they are required, they're required under our current policies and ordinances. Those are things that we're going to look into to see whether or not they're being done appropriately, if they can be done, and if we can actually stop them. So stop doing it. So yeah, we're looking at everything.
Yeah, well, there's a tendency in government not to turn down revenue.
Yeah.
But I don't. If we're not in the park business, I don't know how we can justify collecting a park fee unless GMA requires it. So.
And the only other thing, I don't know if a person could, kind of grant some of that to the city's parks, MISA.
Well, and that's what I was saying is separating the incorporated and unincorporated. Don't collect it in the unincorporated because that's where we would have jurisdiction over parks. But if the cities want to, collect it on their behalf.
Yeah, I do know under GMA there's required a certain amount of green areas and stuff like that within, and so this is kind of in lieu of. So if the developer doesn't have like a neighborhood park in there, they don't designate certain areas for green areas for that type of use, this is paid in lieu of actually doing that. So that's something we'll have to check with GMA. What I do know is in the unincorporated areas, charging a flat fee doesn't seem consistent. You either, to me, would be charging it, or you would be doing a per lot fee as well. It would be based on the number of lots and like everything else is, but for some reason in the unincorporated area, they kind of came up with this flat fee, and so we're checking in to see whether that's even appropriate to just charge one flat fee and not base it on actually the actual number of lots within a short plat or subdivision that may be going in the unincorporated areas, because there are areas where certainly in the unincorporated areas outside the UGA where there is some opportunities for low density development, not too many, but there's just some things in there that me and Lauren have been talking about, and certainly you've talked to us about as well, Commissioner Beck, that we're taking a long, hard look at as we go through the updates to the comp plan as well as updates to our other land use and land development ordinance.
Well, I wouldn't. I'll just finish with this. I'm pretty strongly opposed to the notion of the county collecting park impact fees in unincorporated areas if we're not going to have a parks program. But I wouldn't want us to overlook the opportunity to use those funds to partner, as Commissioner Cook said, in the incorporated areas with the cities and towns. In the unincorporated areas, I think there's an opportunity to partner, say, with State Fish and Wildlife and make enhancements or support enhancements to boat launches and other kinds of park and recreation activities. It's good for the partnership with the state, but more importantly, it's a direct benefit to the people in the unincorporated areas. So I'm not saying that we need to get rid of it. I'm saying we need to evaluate why we're collecting it, is it lawful, and how are we using it. That's
so is some of the problems I see in the unincorporated area, well, what I see actually in some of the small towns, Basin City, which is incorporated, but the Helotes, which is incorporated, they have no money for a park, and they want to do the park for all 30 kids there or whatever it is. But can we put some of that money in there if we so choose? Can we do what we want with that money?
I think part of what what we're trying to do as we were looking at this for the park impact fees and this fund specifically is making sure that it's better defined, if we do keep it, that it's better defined on even what is legally, the legal uses of the money. If it's collected in the unincorporated area, can the county then go into incorporated areas like Colonis, Mesa,
Right.
Connell, and spend that money there? Or does it have to stay in the unincorporated? Those are questions that we still need to get answered. I'm not saying it can't. I just would prefer that we actually have some decisive information for the board to make those decisions. I just can't answer that. To me, it seems like those would be all great uses. The question is whether or not that would be a legal use of money collected in the unincorporated areas.
I think the spirit and intent of the GMA is to use the funds in the areas that are impacted by the development. So when you displace those funds from one part of the county to another, that's where I think you're going to run afoul with GMA. But
I agree.
But I think you need some time to research that and find out.
Yeah.
If you could redirect some to a regional, say, state-owned park and boat launch kind of thing, that might be permissible because of the broader, it's still benefiting the area which had the impact that generated the fees.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Take Basin City, for instance, though. You know, if they have a park, people in the rural area do go to it, bring their kids or whatever. There's activities going on, 4th of July, things like this. Is that a benefit for us to, because then they are getting their money's worth, the people that pay out there that, you know, if we give it to Pasco, they may not see it as well.
Yeah, because it's unincorporated area based on currently how that money's defined, that would, in the unincorporated area, that under current definitions and current policies that we have, ordinances, that would be an acceptable use of that portion of the money.
Well, I know a number of years ago we donated to Edwin Markham to put some playground equipment in, because that's basically even though it's a school property, it's a local park area for the locals, especially during the summer. So
is it school-owned property?
Yeah.
Have we made the improvements on it with park fees?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because it is basically a local park.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. 500 budget?
Yeah.
$116.
The 500 budget revenue, as you'll see, we are now kind of showing two beginning fund balances. The non-dispensable fund balance beginning, that is our inventory, our on-hand inventory value. And so we're showing that at $200,000. And the assigned fund balance beginning is $343,000, and that's then cash, what we consider cash on hand. So that total is $543. So we're going to continue to really tie these down for the board and for the auditor's office, because it's pretty critical to have both beginning and ending, and then being able to balance actuals against that as well. And it's really good for me to also be able to see those numbers and be able to keep an eye. It really adds another layer of internal controls over it. So that's something that the board will continue to see with the motor vehicle fund. Other than that, there are no major differences. The sales of road materials, really that's based on what's currently on hand and then what the needs are of the county road fund. ER&R fund, as you know, was set up to also purchase these materials and then sell these materials to the county road fund, as well as other other agencies as well. So we look at the county road fund with their budgeting for needed materials that would be stockpiled. And it's important that we do this because it does create some controls, because materials don't get charged out by the county road fund until they actually get put out on the road and placed on the road. So they have to be stockpiled for some period of time. And in the motor vehicle fund, them purchasing them and then selling those, and then of course the physical inventories during and after usage creates the necessary controls we need to really keep tabs of the material. It also benefits county roads because then they're only being charged for what they actually use as opposed to maybe what past practice prior to 2012. So those numbers really are just based on that coordination with county roads, and that's both the rock and gravel, sand, traffic signs, all of those things.
So Matt, in the nuclear power business, we used to buy futures on uranium and uranium stocks when prices were low, and it would reduce your fuel cost in the out years, which had huge savings associated. One question, two parts. First, is it legal? And second, could we do the same thing with our road products, sand, gravel, rock, other things? If we encounter really attractive pricing, do we have a place to backstock that material and buffer increasing costs in future years? And do we do any of that kind of planning?
You know, when those opportunities come up, we certainly, this motor vehicle, the ER&R fund is designed for that, to basically be able to go out there and purchase, especially when you see those great prices and stuff, and purchase those materials for use in the future. And that could be 3 years down the road, 5 years down the road.
I'm thinking where you're looking at an alternating cycle of chip seal and gravel, chip seal, gravel, that when those opportunities come along, it might be a great gravel price in a chip seal year, and then you got to make a choice about how to spend the money. But I've seen in the time I've been here enough fluctuation in the costs of sand and gravel and road materials that been a couple of times I thought, I wonder if we should have maybe gone to our reserve fund, for example, and bought a bunch of extra stock and then had you pay it back over time. It was one of the discussion points when we created that reserve fund, was to give us that kind of capital finance flexibility.
And and the ER&R fund is a perfect spot. When you look at the ER&R fund, that fund is incredibly healthy, and because the county has gotten that fund healthy through a lot of hard work and delaying stuff, we're at a point now where we're really starting to replace equipment that should have been replaced years ago. 2018 is kind of our final catch-up year, where we will really start to get some real benefits from turning over our vehicles and equipment and lower costs from that standpoint. And then what should be happening is you will start seeing our fund balances really starting to raise up. Any given year, based on the size of our fleet and the work we do, we should see that really hanging around about $1 million a year, and then some years even being higher, and then as purchases are made. So once we get to that point, which I anticipate that after the 2018, 2019, 2020, we'll really start to be able to see that fund being built up where it should be, which will open up those opportunities. We still are kind of only able to really get what we need for any given year, but the goal is to do exactly what you're talking about.
With that background in mind, if you see a really great opportunity for the county, remember we have that reserve funds for those kinds of opportunities and for a lot of other things.
Haven't we done this before? We buy ahead if it's price like, maybe it's been a
We
while.
haven't done it much.
Maybe it's been a
We
while.
probably have not bought a head like that since the early
In-
90s.
And maybe not with fuel, but probably with, maybe
Somebody
with,
else had their fingers in the fun.
but wasn't with, maybe it was with, roads, some other gravel or something we did. I don't know, there was something, it seemed like at one time we did, but
We had back in the day when the county used to own, actually not own pits, we leased pits from the Bureau and other individuals. We would put out crushing contracts and we would purchase enough materials to last
maybe
us
that's one thing.
for quite a few years. The problem with that is that I can't guarantee that they were using the right mechanism, which is the motor vehicle fund, the ER&R fund for that. I believe what they were doing was paying for it out of the county road fund and then stockpiling it. And Len here may correct me if I'm wrong, but that's not really an appropriate way to deal with the county road fund. The ER&R fund is specifically set up for the equipment rental and replacement and the purchase, the advanced purchase of materials for the resale of those materials to the county road fund. And as you all know, the motor vehicle fund has not been healthy enough to even come close to purchasing enough materials. We're just now, in the last couple of years, gotten to the point where we can really even support the county road fund as much as we are, and I see that increasing. But certainly, when there are a few things, we keep our kind of ears out there. There are a few people that are looking at crushing in our county, and if that happens, we may be coming to the board.
Sure. Well, just in the interest of wrapping this up, I'll just point out that this past winter, it would have been really great if over the last several years we had the financial capacity and had been stockpiling rock and gravel and sand.
Yeah.
Because as we all saw, when the road damage was done, the price of those materials went up.
Correct.
And we could have hedged our bets because, sand and gravel doesn't deteriorate when it's sitting out in the weather. It's something you can stockpile pretty easily. So we could have had a significant savings. Now, in this case, it would have reduced the cost to FEMA and to the state, so it wouldn't have been as much of a direct savings as it sounds like, but still, it's good policy.
Yeah. Like I said, our goal is just whenever we budget and how we do things is we try not to impact the general fund if possible. So we kind of internalize some of these things and try to do everything we can to do everything we need to do within the funds that you have asked us to manage. And I appreciate at least the invitation to have for discussions in the future of opportunities.
Okay.
I think the only thing I want to point out on that you might have seen is we do have, we are showing in this budget I'll just say $1,376,000 for capital expenditures and expenses. And of course, we'll be bringing to the board our major equipment purchases at a later date. But just to let you know, that does include.
What page is that on, Matt?
Sorry, I'm looking at
You said you got 1.376 in capital expenditures planned, and I'm just looking for the page so that I can,
I think it's on 119.
119.
So 117 on my sheet, I think that's all.
We're bad habit of opening it and letting it go.
Okay, so yeah, it's on page 119, far right column, under the working budget.
And that's a pretty good increase.
And what's driving that? Now that I found it, I can listen to you.
Find that again. What's driving that is really the acquisition of 2 dump trucks, and then we do have 1 motor grader that is going to be ready. So the dump trucks themselves are $225,000 a piece. But we're also looking at putting the power lift bed options on our trucks, and what that is where we actually have the ability to have sanders, dump trucks, water tanks, where we purchase those, and then they're just like you see with some of the trucks like the BDI or some of the other have, where they actually have the ability to pull the big stuff on top and they lock in all the hydraulic. The reason we want to do that is we think that at that point we have 2 water tankers that virtually we would be able to get rid of, reduce our fleet, which reduces our costs, and we have the ability with these trucks, it takes about 10 minutes to switch from a dump truck to a sander, 10 minutes to change from a sander to a water truck, so these would virtually just be sitting out in our yard. And we're seeing...
So Matt, that's an illustration of what I was talking about earlier with risks and opportunities.
Yeah.
That's one of the opportunities you're looking at to improve efficiency,
Yeah.
but it takes a capital outlay. And
Yeah.
that's one of those sort of big picture things. Remember I asked you about, do you have any equipment, motor graders, other things that are going to be going out? Well, you just said you got 2 dump trucks and 2 dump trucks and 2 motor graders that presumably you wouldn't be looking to replace if they weren't going to be on their way out soon too.
Yeah.
And so those are the kinds of big dollar things I was talking about. The risk is that if we don't get that equipment replaced and it fails, then we've got a problem, right?
Correct.
And the opportunity side is to, when we replace them, go to something more efficient. Not speaking for the board, but for me personally, those are the kinds of big picture things that are really helpful in the budget process. And again, I trust that you've got a handle on the $30,000 for this and that. So, just trying to make our time more productive and focus on the stuff that really has a lot of weight to it.
Yeah,
No
and you're
pun
right,
intended.
this is an investment up front, but the payoff in the end, I think this is gonna be a huge cost savings in the end, and makes us a lot more mobile, because there's times where we put our spreaders, our sand V-boxes in the back of dump trucks, and the time that it takes to switch them, and then there's times when you actually need a dump truck, even during the winter. This just makes us a lot more mobile, a lot more, we can react a lot better to situations, and as we, like I said, it will ultimately eliminate a few other pieces of equipment, but also right now we have 2 water, I think with just 2 water tankers, one at each end. Theoretically with this, you could have multiple water tankers sitting out in your yard, and we can turn our whole fleet of dump trucks into water tankers, or turn our whole fleet of dump trucks into, so we're gradually wanting to kind of go to this, not that we're going to have every dump truck, every truck will be fitted this way, we'll probably still have some dump trucks, but we'll have a percentage of our fleet that will be fitted with this, with the ability to put on different implements on the back, so.
Okay.
So, other than that, I think that was nice. And I want to apologize, Commissioner Peck, when you're asking those questions. I kind of have this bad thing where I separate county roads from motor vehicle in my thought process.
Well, that's not a bad thing. That's a legal thing. But you're a smart guy. You can manage both in your mind at the same time.
Yeah.
So Matt, in this whole budget, what's your biggest concern? If you had to identify one thing, makes you the most nervous.
Equipment, this equipment right here, purchasing this and equipment and failure throughout the year. If we have any catastrophic failures on equipment, we have to replace it early. That's always a major concern. And so when I look at this list, I'm always looking at what can we put on purchasing in case that happens. So with the motor vehicle budget, that's the biggie. Catastrophic failures certainly are a huge impact.
And on the public works side, since you've now divided it in your mind again, what about the FEMA reimbursement? You don't seem very concerned about the FEMA reimbursement coming in. You're pretty confident that's going to go fine.
I believe it's gonna come in, I just don't know, we don't know the exact amount, and we don't know when.
Okay, all right.
But I believe we're gonna receive some money from FEMA at some point, yes.
So FEMA reimbursement, heavy equipment,
Yeah.
those are a couple of your big focus items. Okay.
Anything else for us?
Of course, the risk when we get you to identify these things is that all three of us for the next 6 months are going to be calling you every other week. So, Matt, how's the heavy equipment? Did you get that FEMA money yet?
Well, and I do want to add that we, part of this, and, one of the things we are purchasing, another major purchase is a prisoner transfer van. What we have been able to find with the last prisoner transfer vehicle they have is that they've been just recycling the actual transport compartment on that truck for a long time, and it is falling apart, and the vehicle itself was undersized when it was originally purchased for this purpose, and that's going to be a $161,000 purchase to get the necessary vehicle. That is an ER&R vehicle, but I'll also tell you that it's been a little bit difficult because of the previous mismanagement, because what we found out about this initially when I was asked by the board and by county administrator to take a look at the ER&R rates in early 2012 and look at redoing them, this vehicle didn't appear like it was being charged out as an ER&R vehicle, so we're not sure that any replacement money was really being collected. So those types of things have made it very difficult for us, but the vehicle needs to be upgraded.
Well, you got two members of the Ben Franklin Transit Board sitting right in here. I'm sure they've got some vehicles they could, recycle or rework.
Bunch of them are bookers right now.
There you go.
Well, they certainly need to be, just for prisoner transfer, need to meet certain specs. So we've been working closely with
If
commanders.
they're good enough for the citizens, they're good enough for the enemies. Yes.
Sorry.
I just had a question on the risk related to heavy equipment, making sure that we're adequately covered insurance-wise. And I realize they're subject to traffic accident, but what about just equipment failure? Motor blows out or any of that kind of thing?
No, where the insurance comes in is if our equipment sitting in the yard succumb to some sort of natural disaster, fire, all of that, and it's covered. But catastrophic failures, those types of things, there is no insurance coverage, which is fairly standard.
I'm sure you could buy the insurance. It's just be cheaper to set the money aside and buy a new grader every 5 years.
And that's really what it is. Part of the structure of the rental rates includes a overhead rate that is specifically for catastrophic failures, and that is one of those that once we get a certain level, a dollar amount in there, then that overhead cost comes off of the rental rates, and then we just do it as needed. So that's kind of a calculated number. We calculated that to be 800,000, and so that's kind of where, and we certainly didn't want to get it all in 1 year, so we calculated so it didn't impact the rental rates considerable amount, and we have tried to do it to where it will reach that level in 5 years, and we just started that last year. I don't know if the board remembers, but when we brought forth the rental rates, that was one of the elements that we included in there, and that was vetted through the state auditor and through the County Road Administration Board as an acceptable thing to do, because that's part of what we need to be doing is accounting for any sort of catastrophic failure so that it doesn't impact the other vehicles in there or impact other funds. So.
Thank you.
So we're kind of we're trying to get to a point where we're self-insuring, I guess is the best answer for catastrophic failures.
Right.
Anything else for Pat or Craig? Anybody? Thanks. Unless you have something else for us.
I think that was about it. You probably are tired of hearing me talk for a day. So you're probably all ready for a break too.
Good report.
Oh yeah, there's the unemployment on 501.
Oh.
I'm not sure. That's one of those that we hope we never have to use, but if we do, it's there. That's the County Road Unemployment Fund. And the one main revenue that's there, which is the Employee Benefit Program Services, the $341.97. That actually is money that gets deposited in there from the county road fund. So, and that covers, even though it says county road unemployment fund, if we still use that for motor vehicle, and if motor vehicle, then motor vehicle reimburses that fund. So I don't know why I haven't been able to find why they just called it. It'd be almost better if it's just the public works. But it helps us keep it does make it a lot easier for us when it's just one fund that's paying into it, and then if the motor vehicle fund or solid waste, say, would then use it for unemployment costs, that that fund just bills them and they pay back the fund. So that's kind of what the revenues that you're seeing there.
So, Matt, are you looking at pre-purchasing some extra mag chloride for this winter? And I guess I should also ask, is that a stable, storable product if the winter doesn't turn out to be heavy?
Yes.
So last year we ended up, I don't remember if we bought some from Prosser or we sold them some, but I remember there was a transfer because somebody ran short.
Well, what happened last year was we actually had the board awarded, and then the company who they awarded it to
couldn't produce because of demand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of feeds into what I was thinking is, should we be looking at an early purchase, or do we already have a contract out for purchase?
Yeah, that'll be going to the award. The board will be looking at that tomorrow.
Oh, that's on tomorrow's
board meeting, and then we'll stockpile. And one of the things we've talked about is looking at actually installing even another large. We have a pretty large tank. I think was it 5,000 gallon tank.
That's Pasco Yard.
That's Pasco Yard. So we're storing it together with Pasco.
Oh no, I mean our Pasco Road, so our shop.
Not the Connell shop. Okay. Yeah. So do we look at cooperative ventures like joint purchase with Pasco, for example, to get better pricing? Is that something we do, or do we operate?
We haven't done that yet with the MAG, which is a great. We've done that with SAM, like with the school districts and stuff like that. So we do have some cooperative purchasing with the school district. They purchase along with us, and that backside of our area, we actually they'll have their own separate stockpile on the port property. The port allows us to use that area outside of our fence there as a stockpile area. So yeah, we have done that, started doing that with the school district, and we are going to be looking at other areas where we can work with the cities and even the.
If it gets us a better price and it doesn't complicate the accounting to keep things separate, I think that's a good approach. Especially with something like mag chloride, where maybe the city runs short, maybe us, and maybe the airport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably the last thing I have to report to the board is there is a statutory requirement for a certain percentage of our vehicles to be, flexible fuel type, and we have started the conversion of some of our vehicles to propane. And there is a fueling station that will be opening up.
They're working on it right now,
Yeah,
so it'll be probably 2 weeks.
yeah, at King City. And so what we've done,
Is that a private venture?
yes, yeah, that's purely private, but we didn't want to pull the string until we saw infrastructure going in, and the infrastructure is going to be there. We slowly started the conversion on some of our vehicles. We don't flex fuel vehicles, some of our newer heavier equipment with the diesel equipment with the diesel exhaust fluids and stuff like that meet those requirements. And so it's just those vehicles that we have that don't meet the requirements and that we're getting converted. So we're going to be completely in line with the statutes and meet all their requirements.
So the concept of converting a portion of the fleet to propane and then relying on a single retail source for fuel doesn't strike me as a good financial move. It has risk written all over it. I would encourage you to get with BDI and see if we're able to have some sort of a cooperative arrangement with them. As you know, that a few years ago they converted all their big trucks to propane. They've got a substantial propane station.
Yeah.
So you might look at that.
And
I'm
we've
worried
even
about
looked
having a single point fuel supply.
We've even looked at installing our own if necessary. So,
But
yeah.
then you've got the infrastructure costs that somebody else has already absorbed.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
just throwing out some ideas for you.
That's a
So
great idea. Appreciate it.
I did a little driving in Europe recently, and when I saw gas at $6 something a gallon, I got an increased sensitivity to fuel costs.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Don't forget to grab a donut when you leave. Is there spud nuts?
I'm afraid my endocrinologist would.
Just grab one. Don't even worry about that. Just grab one and eat it.
Don't worry about them going to waste, fellas.
Although I hate to correct a commissioner in the chambers here.
Those aren't spud nuts.
Those are not donuts. Those are-
Spud nuts, okay. Tastes like donuts to me.
If you called them donuts in there or the owner was standing there, you might not tell.
Oh, yeah. Are you really cutting that in half?
That is the best costume, too. I don't even know who you are. You Lauren?
Oh, I didn't dress for work today.
Yeah.
This is my nap.
Didn't look That's funny. Good job.
Are we taking a break?
Until 1:30, I think. 1 o'clock. Recess until 1. All set?
Private land. Good access.
All right.
Anybody know what page the sheriff is on?
Working to 520.
In
Spreadsheet is page
28. Yep.
Station.
520, you got any highlights you want to talk to us about on the?
Sorry about that.
520, what's that, revenue?
Yeah.
Candy bribe to me.
No, that's our projected revenues. Might be a little higher down the road, but.
Number, page.
Sheriff, in your preliminary, you had 25,000 in that law protection services BLM. I just see a green highlighted there with no numbers in the current version. Did we take that out?
No, we started late this year. We didn't get into their contract until, usually it would run from fall through the next year, and this year we didn't even start, we didn't get it signed until like March, so we haven't had a whole lot of revenue there. We haven't had a whole lot of.
We had the 25,000 in 2018.
Probably best explained is that it's $25,000, right? And it's overtime money, so when we send deputies out to do the patrols and stuff, they're paid overtime, and then we submit those overtime bills to BLM, and then they reimburse us.
So in 16, you had 21,628. 17 working budget is 25,000. Do we have just an approximation of where we are for 17?
Well, we got the 25,000 approved. It's a reimbursement basis, so.
So it's an
what
up
we
to
use,
25.
We will be reimbursed up to 25,000.
And is the amount that gets used up to us, or is it when they call us out?
No, it's up to us,
Okay.
based on our ability to put people out there to provide those patrols. And there's been some problems this year, like broken down quad runners, things like that,
So
and weather.
do you think it's likely that next year we'll have about the same level of involvement out there as we do this year?
There still is the 25,000 budgeted, but it's in the 101,522.
It would be our intention to provide those patrols up to that $25,000 mark, yes.
Okay, and so, Tim, you said it's where?
In the 101,522, what page is that?
So 32, we have a section for the BLM grant. So we moved the $25,000 to the grant area. It was duplicated at one time.
What line is that? It's easier.
Line 105.
Well, I'm talking, okay, so it's on the next page, 105?
105.
Well, I'm talking about the pages on the side, or the line items on the
Yeah,
side.
105.
Okay, 1055. 1055. Okay, yeah, I see it.
Could you quit speaking English?
A late start, because we didn't get the interest until.
Yeah, it was, that's true. The contract wasn't signed till late in the year, which we obviously are gonna go out and spend something we don't have access to, so. And then the heat of the summer, usually activity wanes off out there. But there has been times we've responded out there this year without any reimbursement because of emergency things that out there. Just a couple weeks ago, we had that problem.
Anything else on the resource side?
I'm just looking at the 2017 working budget, the 964 line on page 28. The 2017 working budget is 581,450, and then the preliminary 18 budget is 557,950. Tom, is that delta, that difference, is that likely the 25K move to the BLM?
It is.
Give or take a couple thousand, okay. Yeah, I understand. Okay, thanks. So I'm not seeing any big shifts in any of these numbers. It looks pretty static from 17. Is that about what you're seeing? line. Would jail revenues be on this page?
No, that's under fire.
It's going to be under corrections. Okay, all right. Okay, thanks. Where are we going next?
Expenditure side,
What's that?
the expenditure side,
Oh, okay. So I'm not seeing a real big difference in the salaries and wages line, which is line 972 on page 29. And as odd as it sounds to say it, I was kind of hoping to see a bigger increase there, indicating that we expect to be successful in hiring more people. Have you got FTEs that are vacant?
Nope.
They're all filled?
I currently have 2 FTEs in the academy.
Okay.
Both will be out of the academy at year's end, and then we'll start that internal training process. Hopefully by mid-year of 18, they'll be on their own and out in the community.
So looking at this budget increase for that line, it looks like it's roughly one person. So, well, we're going from $1,950,000 to 2.099, so it's 150,000 by the time you put somebody on staff and add equipment and everything else and overheads and retirement. It's 1 or 2 bodies, right?
I'm not sure if I'm tracking it.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, do you have all your FTEs in the sheriff's office filled now?
Yes.
Okay, and so if this number is going up 150,000, then either it's an increase in wages, or it's additional people, or it's something that's adding that extra 150, 200,000 to salaries and wages next year.
I think it's step increases in the 2018.
All right, okay, all right.
percent.
That's all I was trying to get to,
Yeah.
is it another patrol person, or is it normal incremental cost increases?
Just,
Okay, because we'll have the same conversation, obviously, about corrections, but that's a whole different scenario.
Right. No.
it's nothing that we added.
Yeah.
The two positions that we added for 2017 were added in July as well.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a concern about adding people, it was just finding out if all of our positions are filled now.
contractual raises, basically.
Okay.
All FTEs are filled
And you don't need any more.
on the sheriff's office. Well, let me put it this way. I did not put in for any additional FTEs this year on purpose.
Well, if we've got revenues, I think you probably are going to tell me they need to go toward corrections needs. No?
Well, when we get to the corrections, then I'll put it
Okay, all right, well, I'll stop trying to guess what you're going to tell me.
Nothing looks like it's changed except for the non-baselines, so.
Pretty static. Page 30.
Capital outlays, the vehicles, which is ongoing. I think the tablets, aren't they in IS?
Well, there's been arguments back and forth with that. The problem is that the MDPs or tablets, really, they all need to be replaced, which is about 26 of them. And so the idea is that IS was going to replace so many, and then we were going to try to take out of the capital outlay funds, buying so many to start the process of replacing them. So it's not all in one hit. So it's the best way for me to explain that to them. So there is a need to replace all of our tablets in the field, which is about 26. And I can't remember what's the cost. It's about 150,000 total to replace it wherever it comes
To
from.
replace all 26 of them.
Yes. But we also recognize that that's probably not going to happen, but we need to begin the process of replacing.
Are these actually tablets? Like, I think of a tablet, I think of an iPad. Is that what we're talking about?
Well, they're a laptop computer. That's what they are.
Okay.
They mount in the car. They're mobile.
There's a lot of accessory stuff and installation costs that goes with that, because we're talking $6,000 a piece.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
And you got to tie them into dispatch and iLeads and all.
Right.
So
So,
they're a little bit more than a standard laptop computer.
right.
They have that.
And I imagine they're probably more industrially constructed for the environment. So,
Yep.
I don't recall, I don't think it was a reference to Franklin County Sheriff's Department, but in some of the 911 dispatch consolidation meetings, I've heard references to officers having to do more hands-on with their laptops in their vehicles and rely less on dispatch. And so I would presume that updating this is part of that
Yes.
requirement.
Exactly. Probably percentage-wise, probably 70% of that dispatch work is done on those MDTs. The other 30% is audible. And it's going to become even more tight as we consolidate together.
Well, it probably wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say that part of this cost is driven by the consolidation, because the consolidation is driving a requirement for officers to do more hands-on in the car.
Yes. And the current laptops or MDTs they're outdated.
So the 150,000 is to replace all 26?
Yeah, I believe that's what we put down in there. However they get replaced through IS or through us or.
And so, over the years, we've had this ongoing discussion about who buys this equipment, how does it get charged, is it IS? And the last I heard, my understanding was that the purchases would be done through IS because they can get wholesale bulk purchasing and they have contracts, and then the cost would be reimbursed by whoever the end user was. Does everybody else have that same understanding? Oh, got that one right. Okay.
Plus 15%. Government charge government.
Well, I'm sure you don't mark up the cost of jail spaces for the state.
Actually, we don't. They won't let us.
They won't let you?
Trust me, I tried.
I was going to say, I'm kind of hoping you were, but
What's the x-ray machine? Which one? Where's that at?
X-ray machine?
Mm-hmm.
That's security.
That's at security, so it's not under security?
It's in security.
Oh, there's one here for 27,000, replacement of x-ray machine. Which one's that?
In ours?
I see it in the bottom line here. Did I get in the wrong? Nope.
it's in a red block on page 30.
Well, I can tell you under the sheriff's office, we don't. We're not looking for any X-ray.
Yeah, so that shouldn't.
Different story in the jail and
Yeah.
in county security.
It's in the same block with the tablets.
Is that yours, Rick?
Yes, it is.
So it should be moved over into the security.
So that should move to the 580.
Yes, that's the X-ray machine.
So
Okay.
with the capital outlay, just for clarity, so depending on the amount of capital outlay that's given,
cap dollar-wise, then we will try to allocate those resources best we can for what needs to be replaced and ongoing costs. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, what I think I heard you say is you've got some priorities in mind that maybe aren't reflected in these details and whatever the money.
What we've tried to do is give you a hard, I mean, if Santa Claus arrived today, you know, that's what we would do if we had all that capital outlay.
Sure.
So if it, obviously Santa Claus ain't coming today.
But
So
if
whatever,
you had,
yeah.
if you had 50, you've got in your mind, I'm sure, where you would spend that first, and my guess is that a good chunk of it would go to tablets and maybe an X-ray machine, maybe not.
No, not an X-ray machine. But we would buy equipment for the sheriff's office and something.
Sure. So what is this? It reads as Celebrite UFED.
Cellbrite, it is technology that's used in law enforcement to extract information off your iPads and your telephones.
Okay.
Primarily used in sexual type crimes that they're used there. So you get a search warrant, it's a piece of machinery with software that you send your detective or whoever you're going to have do that work off to school to learn how to use it to extract the information off devices. Something that's used, well, it's used every day in law enforcement. The biggest problem is actually getting access to them. The ones that are actually in the region, you can't even get access to them. You kind of get thrown in line. So most agencies have now went to buying their own, training their own, and using it in-house as opposed to trying to go outside to get that work done. Investigating tools.
And so, sounds like, I guess it depends on how much money there is. I'm just trying to figure out which of these is a priority. It sounds like the X-ray machine is probably toward the bottom, the tablets are probably toward the top.
Tablets are towards the top. The X-ray machine, though, we're talking, the X-ray machine needs to go out of there or somewhere else, yeah. So probably you would be, with some sort of a partial replacement of the GTACs, the MDTs, probably some weapons purchases, and
I thought we just replaced virtually all the handguns at least.
you replaced the ones in patrol for the patrol deputies. We have, the idea is to begin to start to replace so we have them for reserves, and we also have enough guns in supply when you have, say, like earlier this summer we had a shooting and you take a gun away from one of your deputies, that you have a gun to give back to them, so you have a little bit of supply on the shelf. So that's the idea. And then hopefully if you're purchasing so many a year, then you're not coming 8 years from now asking for, to replace the entire weapon systems. So
Yeah.
trying to keep up on it and just keep ahead of it, I guess is the way to put that.
Same as vests.
Yeah, the vest now, we try to use grants. We buy one, we get one. There's a federal grant out there that we use. But yeah, you have to replace them after so long, and you start having failures with them after a certain amount of time.
So when we bought handguns, did we cover 3/4 of the total inventory needed, or half, or?
I'll let Rick. I can tell you that we put all new handguns, holsters, and rifles in every full-time FTE. Those out there working on a daily basis, new weapons in everybody's hands. But what we did was just enough for that. And so now we want to try, we'd really like to start having some replacements for when we do have failures there.
Yeah, and so for the total inventory that you need, it sounds like we've already covered what percentage of the total need? Are we halfway there? Have we done 3/4 of it? Or I could ask another way, how many more do you need?
Can I,
Sure.
Please.
elaborate? The capital requests are getting
jumbled together here. The X-ray machine was for the security division.
But
These handguns are for corrections.
Okay.
Because a couple years ago, we updated the patrol division with handguns. The corrections division is using very ancient 6 hours, and we want to try in steps to replace those.
Okay.
So that's where we've got it kind of separated, but here it's together, so.
And I understand why you all look at it as corrections and law enforcement and
Well,
this.
we try to keep it compartmentalized.
Well, that's right. And from up here, where we're looking at the big
Maybe
picture.
as we hire new corrections deputies,
You're gonna need more, yeah.
the intent is, let's buy them a new handgun, let's buy them, whatever they need that's new as they come in, and cycle out on the back end the worst of our handguns, the worst of our holsters in corrections. We realize that we're not going to replace 50 handguns at once in corrections. So we're looking for a way, again, just to rotate that slowly but surely, and still have some that are in weapons.
I get the process. I was just trying to get a global picture of if your total need in the sheriff's office as a whole is 150, and how many have you gotten covered? 50, 90, 120? Just trying to get a sense of how big that capital need is, because there's a whole bunch of capital needs that we're going to have to weigh against. And as you've heard me say before, I'm kind of a proponent of people having good equipment in those kinds of situations, and so just trying to get a feel for where we are. And I could wait till we get to the corrections discussion and do it there.
Yeah, well, yeah. Probably
Fine.
might be all.
And those 6 hours shouldn't wear out that fast, but that's just a personal opinion.
Well, yeah, if they weren't 20 years old. The very first generation of 6 hours.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll spare us both that discussion.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Through that?
Mm-hmm. Hey, Tom, on page 30, line 1020. What is the description there? It says vehicle and firearms. What am I supposed to make of that? Because vehicles is up above in line 1016.
That was for, I believe, two new deputies last year, and that's why it wasn't carried over. It was for two new deputies last year for vehicle and essentially all the equipment needed for their position.
Okay, thanks.
So that's a carryover from last year, not into 18, right?
Correct. It's not in the 2018 budget. It showed in 2017.
Because we've spent that.
Yeah, except for it got taken out of the 520 and it hasn't been, because of software glitches, it hasn't been, doesn't show up there.
Go into your miscellaneous budgets. 45.
What page are we going to now?
Some boating safeties under yours.
Yeah.
That's 68 then, page 68. Yeah.
I don't think those revenues are
Yeah.
due to change. While we're waiting here for informational purposes, being we're talking about those, the intention is to write a grant at the first of the year to try to acquire a new boat through grant funding. We have one and kind of a half of one. I'm not quite sure.
Sounds like my house.
How the county got their hands on that bad boy. The Bayliner. There's a Bayliner, Captain Bayliner.
Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. So it's a present
He
from
gave
Bill
it-
Gates.
he gave it to
Yeah. We never use that one. Yeah, so we just have one right now.
The Air Force, they'd use that for target practice.
What's that?
The Air Force, they'd use that, they'd just tow it, use it for target practice.
It might have some trade-in value.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking.
Do you know potentially how much the grant would be?
Dan? Is it a 50?
I think it's a 50 or 25%. I can't remember.
But the match, but we would dig the match out of the voting safe. Right. So there it depends. If you try to have one like the Pasco Fire Department got, you're talking about $200,000, but that's not where we would be heading at. But my bet I'd push somewhere into the hundreds. But that's only if we get over the grant bridge.
Should we put that in the budget then, just in case? It's not that, it's pretty solid.
Now would be the time to do it, wouldn't it? So
Yeah, because right now there's only $129,000 total budgeted, and if it ends up being more than that, then
For a boat?
That's how much budget is.
just total revenues,
That's how much
total
we spend.
expenditures, and so if it ended up being more than that, then the budget would have to be.
I think it'd be more fair to say that if we apply for a grant, we can come in front of the commissioner and say we're applying for a grant, but it looks like this is what the county would have to cough up or some other source before we went that far.
The grant doesn't even open until June.
So we wouldn't be looking at buying
No, we'd be in the next year.
19, okay.
But for your all's purpose, the boat we got has a brand new motor in it. Just, much better than we were earlier in the year with our boats.
Got rod holders?
Yeah, actually. Pretty nice up on the reefs. We salmon fish while the firemen are practicing out the end of their boat.
So the expenditures and uses of salary, wages, and overtime, and retirement, and all that, that's just a portion take from there to put in there to support one person working there, or?
Probably, no, I don't think we do that, do we?
Say that one more time.
On the expenditures, salary, wages, overtime, retirement, all that money there, which amounts to $23,000. That's just what you take from this boat and support the person.
It's plugged in
portion.
so we can utilize.
You don't have one person hired for that, though. Yeah, so it's just a portion of whatever the consistence. Yeah, that's what I was assuming.
We actually pulled deputies off patrol to do those.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Yeah. Okay.
So, is there an equal offset on your wages for the deputies of $23,656? Or are you budgeting their time twice?
It's typically just overtime, isn't it?
It's, no, well, yeah, it's overtime that's taken out of here. It's not regular salaries.
That explains why it's an adder. Okay. Page 69, are we?
Yeah, 131.
I don't see any change at all here in this whole page.
Okay, 132.
Well, I was looking at the 17 working and the 18 preliminary. When you get into the 18 working budget, there is some additional, but it's not a lot. Some incremental cost increases for personnel. And, yeah, that's good. Page 70.
Right, so capital.
Back to 131. Sheriff, is that Washington State Criminal Justice?
CJTC, where's State Criminal Justice Training Commission?
Yeah, it shows that 2017, 210,000, and only 89,000 in 2018. Am I reading that correctly?
Those are academy costs, right?
What is he talking about?
What's the number?
The working budget?
33401,001. Does that help you?
Am I looking at the
The
wrong?
2017 working budget, 210,000. The 2018 prelim budget, 89,000.
I have no idea what that
Combination
means.
of the fund balance and the revenues for the year.
I was just going to say, you got an extra 200K right below it that,
I'm just making sure I understand what's in fund balance versus what's annual revenues for the grant.
I think the grant this year is right at, I might even be 83. We just got the letter not too long ago. It might be 83,000 for revenue this year.
Okay. So the 210 probably should be down.
I don't know what the 210 is.
It has to be fund balance.
You sure those aren't academy costs?
No, he's talking about that right there, working budget. I don't know what that.
We call it CJTC, that's what.
That's the resource account. That's where we get the money. The sex offender grant.
Oh, sex offender.
Yeah, that's the grant. Yeah. But I don't know what this is for.
So it's sex offender grant, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I just want to know
The revenue.
amount of that.
I'm not sure where that came from.
83 to 80. Okay.
Yeah, so the 2017 budget number ought to be 80-something, and there should be,
Unless that's the accumulation of the years, is that what it
I think you just didn't categorize the fund balance correctly.
yeah, it should be a couple lines down, right?
Probably want to make sure that you don't just take it away, because isn't there money in here that pays for the overtime for
Oh, yeah, that's
on top of that?
No, that's a stipulated budget. You can't do anything with
Yeah,
it.
the totals look
It's a
right. I'm
miscellaneous.
just trying to understand some of the detail there.
What's in there's in there.
It was showing a grant amount of 210,000. It should have shown a grant amount of some smaller number and then a beginning fund balance below that. A total of about 210. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah.
It's just two lines got lumped
This
together
here.
into one.
If this is more correct, then this should be the 80 total.
I mean, the grant for 17 you said was 80 some?
I think it's around 83.
So that line that says 210 probably should have been about 83, and the line, couple lines down, should have been like 120.
That's right here. Red.
$132. So you got in contingency here, you got 6,600 in the 132.
That's just a budget balance. Yeah, that's not committed to anything, Commissioner. It's just to show that the resources and expenditures and uses are equal in that miscellaneous fund.
Okay.
You got 600 on Metro reimbursement, and then 6,600 in balance to get the 72.
Correct.
And the 72 is a result of what? Carryover from the previous year?
Yeah, that fund continues. Sheriff, you want to describe a little bit about the Sheriff's Narcotics Trust Fund, kind of what that parameters for its use are?
There has to be narcotics related towards investigations, in a nutshell. So if, for example, we just seize some money, it's a couple $1,000, and it'll go into that trust fund once it clears, if it clears. And then it has to be used for narcotics investigations, or has to have that nexus of narcotics attached to it to utilize it.
And Metro overtime is taken out of this and then reimbursed through Metro. This is the primary use that we use it for.
So the 2015 actual doesn't have a number, shows a 0.
That's because they weren't reimbursing us.
Okay.
They didn't get their money, so we didn't get ours.
Then in 16 it goes to 7282, and then you've got 22 in the working budget. All right. 133, Bob?
Yes. Hasn't changed any either.
So this would not, DUI fund would not show any, this is recovery fund, doesn't show any tickets issued. You wouldn't get the revenue from there to go into, that would be the revenue on the first page, but you really don't get any, it goes back to the state, correct? All of it, or some of it?
Well, it comes back around to a certain degree. I don't know what those percentages are. The highest percentage of a ticket or a DUI arrest goes to the state, not to the county.
Yeah, the higher percentage does.
These funds are deposited through district court.
Oh, okay.
So Tom, on page 71, line 2259, beginning fund balance restricted. The 2016 year-to-date is 1380, and the 2018 preliminary is 1380, so it just carries through. But in between those is a 2017 working budget of 4,000. Is the idea there that there's 4,000 of revenue that's going to be absorbed or expended? What is that number really telling us?
Yeah, also it's just an overall optimistic, estimate. Maybe they thought they were going to get revenues by the end of the year and they didn't come in, so it didn't materialize. So it's just a budget figure. We could look at the actual.
That's all right. It's not a big number. I was just curious about the mechanics of it. So I'll carry it through to the next, because they budgeted 10,000 for operating revenue total last year and again this year, but it doesn't look like it materialized last year, so this year's number is probably equally unrealistic. So the 10,000 projected revenue total on line 2257, page 71, it looks like it didn't play out in 17, and we've just put the same number in again for 18.
Projected I don't do the revenues on the fund because we don't get them. Like I say, they come through district court. So we can spend them, but we don't collect them.
Yeah, I'm not really looking as to who puts the numbers in, just that the number was way too high last year, and it looks like there's no reason to think it's not way too high this year too.
If that's the case, then line 2265 on the expenditure side would come down by the same amount. So it goes materialized.
Well, yeah, I'm looking at the prior year numbers now. Yeah. I'm just not seeing any
revenue at all.
No, and there's probably no harm because the two sides are offsetting one another, except for that 4,000 delta that is the overly optimistic.
It looks like the revenues stopped coming into that fund for whatever reason.
Yeah.
In the beginning fund balance we checked it is the actual amount is the 1380, so that's how much right now you can spend.
Yeah.
What are the limitations on the use of those funds?
For breathalyzers, gas, for CDTs, different things for
DUI-related investigation.
Got money for a few days.
34?
Yep.
I think is a corrections fund. So 135 would probably be the next sheriff. 134 I think is a corrections fund. So 135 would be the next one.
Oh dear.
Somebody needs to work on their compartmentalization because we've got correction stuff in between the sheriff's stuff. Just saying.
So the 135.
So changes in the DARE program, it looks like a small amount of revenue increase, but then about a fourfold increase in expenditures.
Let's see.
That account carries over year from year, but what happens is, so far, MESA throws in $1,000 into that fund every year to support the DARE program. we teach and run in the grade schools. And as of, well, probably the first year, then the Sheriff's Advisor, or the Sheriff's Foundation is also going to start putting money in there to strengthen our DARE programs. But literally what that is that money is T-shirts and trinkets, and all that stuff for graduation.
Sure.
Stickers and all that.
And the only sure resource fund prior to the foundation was City of Mesa is required every year to donate or put in $1,000 a year to that fund.
So you're looking to the foundation to put in about 7,500?
No. I don't know how to explain that to you.
Well,
I think, isn't that carryover?
I'm looking at the 2017 working budget as 1,000, and the 2018 is 8,500. So the difference is 7,500, and the carryover, or the total goes from 2,000 to 95. So that's consistent. The beginning fund balance is what's increasing by 7,500.
I think the Indian fund balance was probably in there, it wasn't put in correctly last year. I just looked at it right now, and there's about 8,000 in there right now. So that's why there's the 8,500 projected for the end of year this year. And then the expenditures was just increased to match the revenues.
Okay.
The donation account.
It's the guys with the money right here.
Piece is involved with the others, and the other cities are not.
No.
Is it a contract with the city?
It's in their contract.
It's in their contract.
Okay.
But my understanding of that is when they were negotiating their yearly, they wanted to be able to put so much money in their DARE program because it specifically impacted their community.
Well, we did DARE in the schools in Mesa.
Still do.
Because we still do. But we're close, close is the other law enforcement contract that we have.
Mesa and Basin City is where we do DARE. Our contracts are with Colonis and Mesa.
Connell PD does it there, and
I don't think Connell PD does DARE.
they don't do it anymore.
So Tim, going back to that beginning fund balance for 17, you said might not have been entered correctly. What line would that have gone on? Is that the 23-21 line?
I think it was just a bad estimate that was put in there. I think it just hadn't been looked at. I think there's probably more available to put in there for 17. It just wasn't. I'd have to look back at the history, but.
Well, and that's what I'm asking is, am I on the correct line, which is the 2320 or 2321 line, where it says 1,000? That probably should have been more like 7,000.
That would be my guess.
Okay, all right.
Hey Tim, one more time before we move on. How much did you say was in that DARE account?
There is
1,500.
Huh? One more time. 8,000.
All right, that looks like it takes us to the 540. 540, which was that? Page. Oh,
I see you're looking at corrections, aren't you?
34.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. If you're gonna take that one page for
Maybe we can start with the miscellaneous 134 on page 72.
Yeah, just get that out of the way.
Tim, you might create a new line entry here too, under Sheriff's Department expenditures for razors. Kind of looking around the room, noticing a trend here. Clearly, we've underfunded certain essential needs.
That's true.
We go to the 134 fund, Steve, and get that out of our way.
I finally take some time off. I'm gone for 2 weeks. I grow a beard. I figured, Sunday night I better shave it so I don't go in looking all scruffy and then walk in here and everybody's got a beard. Just no winning.
We're doing a fundraiser.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, but I don't think you guys look scuffy, so it's okay.
I was looking this morning in the mirror and thought.
I think you look kind of scruffy. I'll say it on the
Kind of
record.
pretty.
Yeah. I think
So what is the fundraiser? I mean,
We actually are having no shave, October, November, December, and we're taking the monies and giving them directly to the Boys and Girls Club and to SART.
and so is this like a jogathon where you can, donate money based on laps or length of the beard? How's this work?
No, the money that you raise, that's so good. I think we pay what?
$60. $60 up front.
$60 to participate. And then at the end, do you have a winner, or is this just?
They just take a picture and get it off on
and all the
the
money goes to charity.
and January 1st it comes off.
Are you selling the opportunity for people to do the removal?
Don't get him started.
'Cause I'm thinking I could find $60. I mean, that's not a very steep price for the opportunity.
Some of us paid way more than $60, but that's okay.
All right.
So that's the beard story. January 1, everybody will be hairless from the earlobes down.
Unless they want to pay more to continue, right?
Nope, next year again is it.
That's it. All right.
Okay, Steve, the 134, the commissary.
Yes, sir.
Is there something you needed to know about it, Commissioner?
So the beginning fund balance on line 2281 is more than double. I'm looking at the 16 actual at 51.8.
So you're looking at which line item?
So I'm looking at page 72, line item 2281. We come across, I'm looking at the beginning fund balance for 16 was 51.8. And then we're showing 35 for 17. And then a working budget is 75 for 18. So I'm just trying to reconcile those numbers to see if your beginning fund balance is building, how we get to that 75.
Yeah, this is,
What we find going through these budgets is that, with the best of intentions, it's hard to keep all these lines straight. Sometimes numbers get bumped in and bumped out, and sometimes it gives the impression there's a lot more money there than there really is, or vice versa. So for the 2017 working, it shows a beginning fund balance of $35,000. That would have been the start of this year. And it's going to show $75,000 as a beginning fund balance here, January 1st coming up. That's a $40,000 increase, and I'm just wondering if that's a real number, or where that's coming from, or if I'm even reading it right.
As of today, it's 57,000.
I updated the beginning fund balances, and I think when I did it, I looked at on the screen there, I think I looked at the 70,000, which it shouldn't include this 14,000. So it should be more like 57,000.
Okay, that makes more sense. Is that something that's worth correcting, or is it just not really a big deal because it's either going to be there or it's not, and it's self-balancing? Yeah, all right.
So these revenues are inmate driven.
Right, and they self-balance anyway. I just use them as an indicator as to whether or not this fund is growing or shrinking, which could
Plan
be.
is to make it grow.
Well, that's right, and if it's not growing at a steady rate, and it's not keeping pace with costs, and it's gradually declining, then it's a flag to say, hey, we need to look at this. And if it's going the other way, then it's an opportunity to say, maybe we can redirect some of those funds into some other corrections area. That's all I was looking at, is it was a twofold shift.
Okay. And just for your information, I mean, we're in the process of getting ready to put out an RFP for a request for proposal for bringing in an actual commissary system that would take us out of the money handling business of the commissary and allow that to go more into just directly into machines or through charge cards and stuff through offenders and families and online stuff and get a better. I think we'll draw more income because they'll throw more of a variety of things of which to purchase. We'll still scan it and make sure they're not getting things they're not supposed to be getting, but it'll also be more controllable for the families out there for what the offenders inside are also purchasing, and they can buy more items for them.
And it's automated?
Yeah.
And it's a private vendor?
Correct. Right.
So it's more efficient, it puts business into the private sector, it gives us more consistency and more variety, and we still make money.
It takes the hands of the cash thing more so out of the officers having to deal with it and shuffle, so that just makes it more efficient that way as well.
Yeah. Talking my language.
That was on the 540.
Just on the contingency line, Tom, page 72, line 2306.
And again, that would just be the balance budget for the available resources.
It's essentially like an ending balance.
Yeah, I understand that they cancel out, so it doesn't change the bottom line, but I'm still looking at saying we were at 26.9 and now we think the ending is going to be 44, and I guess the question is, why do we think that? Because when you say that there's going to be more money there, you're also saying that we're going to spend more. That's how they cancel one another out.
You could also reduce the beginning fund balance by 1 to 20,000. And reduce that number right to 20,000.
And I did adjust the beginning for balance down by 15,000 based on the
previous year.
And so then that contingency was adjusted as well.
Yeah, there's a piece of this equation that I'm not getting, because in the 18 working budget, the thing goes up to 70,975. And again, I realize that it's being canceled out, but why do we?
Well, I have it at 55,975 now after adjusting the beginning fund balance.
Okay.
Screen here.
All right. So it's a real number. Real money. Okay. All right.
No.
It's a pretty significant increase.
Which one you
percentage points from 26.9 in the 2017 working. The 2016 actual is not even there. But in 12 months, we go from 26.9 to 71 grand without any understanding, at least on my part, of how we got there. So what's that leave us, Bob? What fund are we at?
540, page 34. So the Pasco lodging is gonna stay static from 17 to 18?
When's their contract up?
Their contract will be up next year.
Yeah, until next year.
Didn't we increase that rate in 17?
We did.
Yep, sure did.
So wouldn't arguably 18 be a bigger number than 17?
I think what you do is take the numbers with the state contract, and those will become everybody's new numbers.
But with respect to Commissioner Cook's question on Pasco lodging, line 1097 on page 34, it doesn't change between 17 and 18.
Actually goes down from
And
16.
it goes down from 16 by 3,500. And so just natural question is, if we increase the rate mid-year in 17, why are we going to end up in 18 with less than we had in 16 and the same as 17? Is
Mine
it
is that we
just
have
a
a
cautious estimate? Is that what we're dealing with?
Well, we have a 2-year contract with it, so it should stay the same. I know that the rates have gone down some because of the stays that we have going on. So being a little cautious on that end, because there's a lot more of, what's happened in previous years is that we held a lot more of your mentally ill offenders and those kinds of things that, they just take more time just sitting in your jail. With the diversion program and those kinds of things that we're putting into play, you're getting a lot less time with the mentally ill being held in jail for longer periods of time. So that's going to drop your numbers down a little bit off of just knowing that we're doing more diversion to get them out of the jail faster and more into care,
So the
crisis
daily
response stuff.
So the daily rate is just one of the variables. You've got length of stay type and frequency. How many offenders are actually sent to us, or how many we take?
Correct. For how long a stay that they're going to stay in. Mentally ill offenders have a tendency to stay a lot longer, just for the fact that they refuse to go to court until the court orders us to force them to come.
So you've got shorter stays, which is probably offset by higher rates, which is also creates an unknown because you don't know how many you're going to get. So your crystal ball says this is in the neighborhood.
This is close best guess.
Yeah.
What's the current bed rate right now?
65.
65, and the state's bed rates.
65, and 64 something is going to go up to 67.
Yeah. I've seen a real shift, I think, in the last couple of years in the revenue in this area, which department deserves a lot of credit. I think we were underselling our services for a long time, and I don't even work over there, but it seems that to me.
Yeah, we're really growing in that avenue. We just signed that other MOU just recently here with, Columbia County. So we're housing some for them right now.
Good.
Same price at 65?
Same price.
I think the state come in and said we couldn't make.
Couldn't.
They don't allow
We
us
couldn't make a lower bed rate for somebody, one person is good.
You can't change, you got to keep it consistent.
Correct. We're only allowed to go up 3% each year, period.
Okay.
But we're taking every advantage of that 3% each time we get the contract.
Sure.
What's a big shift in Connell lodging?
That's because of an audit from the state. The state said that we couldn't be charging Connell less than we're charging everybody else. So we had to up their bed rate.
You up the bed rate, and then there are less people they're bringing in to save on their costs.
Yeah.
So,
But you're raising it by $17K.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
But
an estimate.
the
just
rate
an
increase 15% sounds like.
You did.
I'm just picking a number out of the air, but it kind of feels like about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it went from actually almost 50.
What was it?
30.
It was 30 and went up to 65?
We went up to 65.
I thought it was, low 50s and we went up to 60. Okay.
That contract had been in place for
Long time.
a long time.
Yeah. 2011, I believe.
Did your work release go completely away, did I see?
Work releases have gone away, so the income that you would normally, the revenue off of that is gonna be gone. That's, about 75,000 for the year.
Don't be fooled though, because to get that 75,000, you have essentially 2 FTEs working in there.
I see you got it listed for 65, 250 for this 18, so that's why.
Yeah, they were paying, what those work releases were paying, $10 a day?
Well, it was actually, it's 18 per day is what it came out to total overall, but yeah, we had 6 in there during our last discussion. When we were closing it down, we knew we were gonna have 1 in there at the time, so.
So we got to cross out the 65, 250 that's got in here for 18.
Right, well, we're gonna keep the FTEs, we have got to.
But this
We're gonna
This
reutilize that.
this is the revenue you're showing,
Yeah,
65.
the revenue is gone.
Revenue's gone.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yes, sir. The revenue will be gone.
zero.
Also, the cost for the monitor bracelets and stuff that we've been paying out, that can be deducted off too, because that service would be gone. That'll be going out to like Moon Security or something like that, so that cost.
Yeah, well, we're not to the cost yet, but
Right.
I hear you. If that's
But it all
the
ties
FTE
in
say,
together.
sure. On the work release for Connell, it's actually showing a 500 loss. Do we have to rebate them or something, or
Yeah, that was, no,
we owe them money for something?
never used.
That's probably something on my end.
You can probably just zero that out. Pasco work release doesn't show anything in 17 or 18.
Never used.
Not going to do, okay.
Has to use it outside, so they use
Correct.
Moon Security, right?
Yep.
Now, you mentioned the inmates from Columbia County. Do you have any data that looks at the regional jail facilities to see if their capacity in their system? Are there counties around us that are going to be building new facilities anytime soon that we know about? I'm just trying to think long-term in terms of inmates moving around from county to county or between the state and the county. Is it pretty much a status quo available beds in the region?
Yeah, Columbia County, they don't plan on doing it in Walla Walla County. They're in a state of flux if they do anything.
Yeah, they're looking at trying to expand right now, but, I mean, I can't predict what their future goals are for expansion right now. I haven't heard anything on it. I just know that they're looking at trying to expand, because they're definitely overcrowded.
Benton County. I've actually had the Walla Walla chief of police and another agency in Walla Walla asked about housing.
I'm sorry,
Housing in our facility.
We had discussions several years ago about whether or not a regional jail here would make sense. And as I recall, the judges, among other people, were not excited about the potential of remote arraignments and hearings and such. And that, combined with some questionable financials, seemed to kind of kill that idea, even though I guess Chelan and Douglas do have a combined multi-county.
They do.
But the point I'm making is we had that discussion, and I don't think any of those resistors have gone away, so I don't see a regional jail being a likelihood.
And Benton County's daily rates climbing.
It helps us.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Because they're way up there. They're 97, 98 a day.
As we line up, we should be able to generate more money, for lack of better words. I mean,
Well,
it's just you have to have the bed space.
I'm sure the state is paying attention to those rates.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah.
Help me understand the Pasco medical reimbursement. It seems like it's all over the board and it's dropped $30K this year over last.
Medical costs for offenders?
Medical reimbursed from Pasco.
Yeah, see that, a lot of that, and there's, I mean, our numbers were fairly low this year on the medical piece for Pasco. And most of it is because they refund back, or we're trying to get as much as possible direct billing to them. So instead of us seeing the bill, paying for the bill, and then turn around and trying to get reimbursement back for that, most of it now is getting directly sent to them on a billing process, so there's less reimbursement. So that's going to show serious flexes, and we haven't had big numbers this year. For the most part, it's been through us. For Pasco, it's been direct bill to them. Thus, they're looking at negotiating out for a better deal straight directly through them to the healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been actually getting consultants to come in to try to figure out better rates, which I sat in a couple meetings with them, trying to figure out how to save some of those costs that they're incurring directly now.
All right.
So, I'll continue to pay attention to that, see if they're finding out some better cost rate than enforcing what we do right now is the current RCW, which makes us give them a Medicaid rate. That's what they got to bill us at. So we'll just keep taking a look at that to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing at that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Medicaid rates, that's until we got Steve in there looking at things, we were actually being charged a lot more higher than Medicaid rates. So we had to re-educate some of the medical community that they couldn't be doing that on our county tax dollars. So we've driven that down. So
As soon as we did that, it was across the board, because Connell jumped in on that, Pasco jumped in on that at the same time, went, what are you doing? And as soon as they found out that we changed it to enforce the RCW, they joined on board. That saved them some cost already.
Who was charging the higher than allowed rate?
The hospitals were actually, all the providers were charging what was currently agreed upon, which was a 50-50 split, straight up. And I looked at it and just kind of went, whoa, wait a minute now. I mean, we should be just getting a Medicaid rate off of this, not a 50-50 split. Why aren't you just doing enforcing the RCW 7048-130?
A 50-50 split of what?
Well, it's a 50-50 split of the total bill.
Okay.
And the
I
Medicaid
assumed
rate
that. I
actually
just wanted
is
to hear what you
less.
said.
The Medicaid rate is less, which the law allows us to just, hey, you do a Medicaid rate.
Yeah, well, if they're committed to the Medicaid rate and they're knowingly charging more than that, at least in my world, that starts to sound like fraudulent behavior. It's not what they were doing.
Yeah, but the RCW allows for, you can go what you agree upon, or.
Well, that's where I was about to go is,
Yeah.
however, it sounds like fraudulent behavior, however, we had an agreement for 50-50.
Some kind of verbal.
Was that agreement lawful was the question I was headed toward.
Right.
And what I'm hearing you say is the RCW allows for a local agreement like that.
Correct. It does allow for it. I just went to them and just said, okay, now why would I agree to pay half of the bill when I can also go to a Medicaid rate?
Right.
And this is what I'm going to agree to is the Medicaid rate, because that's going to be less. And they just said, okay, fine. I mean, this is just what was agreed upon at that time.
So the amount that was being billed was more than double the Medicaid rate?
Well, it was more than the Medicaid rate, I can tell you that much. How much more would depend on each bill and where it falls under in the Medicaid rate. But what I found out was a far better savings to go with the Medicaid rate.
And just so that I'm understanding, you said a 50-50 split, we were paying 50% and
The hospital was absorbing the rest.
was absorbing the 50%.
Correct. That's what was happening in the past.
And the hospital was writing the bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see an issue there.
Well, you know, I've taken a lot of heat for calling out what I think are conflicts of interest in the mental health community, and so I suppose this is probably not much different.
So today, we enforce the Medicaid rates, the RCW Medicaid rates.
Say that louder, please.
I said today we enforce the RCW Medicaid rates.
Yeah.
Which
Well-
is 70/48/130.
For us to pay the Medicaid rate and be saving money means that the previous 50-50 arrangement, they must have been charging more than double the Medicaid rate.
I don't know.
Otherwise, we wouldn't be saving money. So that's what's interesting. You follow me? Good. Well, somebody does. Yeah.
You know, I remember we talked about when you're going to get the prisoners from Columbia County and bring them. Do we go pick those up, or do they bring them?
They bring them to us, and kind of how the arrangement is they bring them to us, they do the transports that are necessary for them, so if, in other words, if they gotta go out to a medical call out,
Yeah, they do it all good.
they're willing to come over, pick them up, take them to the appointment, and bring them back. We coordinate out for the appointment times and then notify them.
At
of
the
those.
same room rate, lodging rate too, right?
That is correct.
Yep.
Yeah, that is correct.
The higher rate.
Good. Higher one.
When did we go to just strictly using the Medicaid rate and get rid of this 50-50 verbal agreement?
I think that was last year sometime.
Last year sometime?
Sometime, yeah.
One of a lot of changes over there.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, let's go on to page 36.
Tom, where does the 550 start?
Starts on page 37. 87, I mean.
Thank you.
The food service portion of there.
Yeah. And 36, we're looking at, this is the 550?
540, correction.
540, sorry.
And
540 expenditures.
it all mirrors. It all mirrors except for the red, which is asking. Or is that, no, that's, yeah, new request, okay. In other words, 17 and 18 mirror. But the requester, quite a bit higher.
And so, Tom, page 36 is a continuation of the 540 expenses.
Yeah, page 35 is just salary benefits, so I didn't see any
Right, no, it's
reason
fine.
to stop there.
I just kind of lost my place there for a minute. Wanted to make sure I was looking at the right stuff.
Did you have a question about food services? Or was I?
We haven't gotten there yet.
No, I was just trying to get on the right page. I missed a spot.
Okay, I'd like to be on the right page, but I don't have those pages in front of me.
Come on up, I'll get you a chair.
Well, I may need to, depending on how things go. This starts at 72 and goes all the way up to 115. Is it over here? Oh, thank you.
Request.
That'll help.
Yeah.
Ah, yeah, I thought you had these pages, sorry.
We do.
We do now.
Now, I know
Yeah.
we do.
All right, page 36.
Okay.
Now that you've got the sheet, can you just like go line by line and tell us what each thing is?
Sure, if that's what you want to do.
We'll be here
How much
till
time
next-
you got?
We'll be here until next week.
Yeah.
I believe you probably could too. So just, it's probably obvious, but what I'm doing and what I think the other commissioners are doing is looking at the 17, comparing it to the 18, and then
Yes, sir.
looking at the 15, 16 for any trends. So kind of three things. How is 17 stacking up? What are we looking for 18? And then how does that all fit into the bigger 4-year window?
Totally understand.
I got, looking at the bold numbers, looking down, we've got 17, 18 at 1.541 for 17 and 18. Then you go down below and you got 6.090 to 6.112. How does that add up?
It includes the salaries and benefits, the grand total.
So that's a double line under the bold, which is a roll-up of 2 pages worth?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that confused me the first couple of years, that double line versus a single line. Unless somebody points it out, you just, bold is bold.
Yeah. Okay. Other than that, it's the same budget, just the contractual differences.
Just the 2018.
Bike pin's the biggest bump. And that's kind of out of our control.
So, any questions?
You said BIPIN's the biggest bump?
Yeah, bike pin, and I don't even know if this number is accurate after the last discussions that went down, or if that's gonna go up another 100,000. I know that we had projected one thing, and when the last meeting we went into, it was like double, and we're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that's all gonna wash there, and I know that Kevin Scott's looking at that stuff as well, so.
Yeah.
Again, that's out of our control.
Another BIPIN board meeting this coming Thursday. The thing they're talking about is the impact all the local agency budgets for 2018. The current software that they're using is no longer supported, or will be no longer supported, and so they've got to replace it. And having to assess agency budgets that be to replace that system. So it's going up for everybody significantly, yes.
And I'll admit, we're using that resource way more than what it was originally used before my time here. But we're using it to put us in the 21st century of how you're supposed to use this software for classification of offenders. It's just keeping us out of lawsuits in the future.
So prior to my election, there was actually 2 user stations inside the jail for MyPen and iLeads. And MyPen and iLeads is the jail management system for the county. And so we started using it and putting things to paper and storing and keeping the information as we should. And that required adding stations and users. Because everybody in there has to have access to that system in order to write reports and move people, electronically within the jail management system, et cetera, et cetera. So you saw that pressure plus the needing to upgrade countywide or by countywide come in at the same time.
So I understand the big picture of updating the system, the hardware, the software, we're all going to share in that cost. Once we do that, do we then have any user fees on top of that? And
Yeah, you
is
bet.
that predicated on the number of stations, the amount of actual usage, or some combination?
It's a combination of both, and I mean, it's just like the whole disciplinary process that we put into place now, which is a big part of the settlement agreement. Then that software is in the system. It's right there. It controls it, it monitors it, it shows for your infractions and just all the due process that we've incorporated. That, I mean, Benton County's been using it for years. We get into the system and now we're activated. That's use. That's stuff that's happening in the system. And that makes our user rate go up.
Is the number of terminals and the amount of actual usage a significant factor in our total cost picture?
Well, it has a part of the cost, but overall now it's however this contract's going to go is what's driving this big number. I
understand that's the big global picture of getting the entire system updated.
Correct.
But in terms of our local usage, sounds like the breadth and the depth of our usage also drives additional costs for us.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm trying to get my arms around is that a relatively modest operating cost, or is that a big deal where we might want to look at the number of users and stations?
Well, I think right now we're at that number that we need to be at as far as users go.
Right.
Because you have each supervisor that holds their hearings for minor hearings. You've got our lieutenant that does the major hearings, and then I go beyond on top of that for the appeal stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning whether or not you have the right number. I'm just trying to get my head around how much of the cost is the number of stations and the amount of usage. Is that?
It's significant. What happened?
It is.
What happened prior to 2015? There was 2 user stations inside the jail with maybe a half a dozen user licenses. People actually use it, and they're all basically riding off sharing those licenses, if you will. And we've expanded, we've went and we've put more user stations, more computers in locations within the jail so that everybody can get on and sign on to iLeads or BiPAN and do the reports and do that. So our user licenses, people using them, it increased significantly.
So how much, I mean, maybe it's on here, what is the cost?
I know it's not broke down.
Well, I'm looking at 90 grand for 17, and then in the 2018 request, there's 140, which I'm assuming has to do with the global update and upgrade. What I'm not seeing, or maybe it's here and I'm not understanding it, but there's some sort of a user level day-to-day cost for the number of stations and the amount of usage, and I don't have a picture yet whether that's 1,000 a month or 10,000 a month or 50,000 a month.
And I don't have that information either. I got our stuff from Kevin as far as what our cost is for using the system.
Okay. All right.
So, what was the BiPAN cost for the jail specifically last year? We could probably come up with that number.
It's, really, I'm just looking at it from my own education, because in these discussions about consolidating 911, I get focused on what the cost of the mechanics of the consolidation and everything, but sometimes it drives these unintended consequences or sometimes unseen expenses at the local level, and this sounds like a case in point.
Well, I think when I came
but I'm hearing
here,
you say the driver is not the consolidation, it's getting up to standards.
No, the driver for the increased cost in the jail is not because of consolidation.
Right, it's getting up to standards.
Yeah, it's coming up using the system for what it was intended for.
Okay.
yeah, I think originally we went from like 35,000. I know when Scott was asking me, how much more are we going to be using that thing for? Because it went from like 15 to 35. And then all of a sudden I see it bumped into 65. And I'm like, okay, man, how far? I mean, we're going to keep going.
Bumping like that, making those bumps, because we keep adding users, people physically using it on.
Yeah, we're using a bigger piece of the pie, so our rate's going up. I get that. I'm just trying to get a.
That's the end of September, we had spent 60,000, almost 60,000.
Okay, so it's $100,000 a year cost to meet compliance standard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks.
Then you're going to have that same thing on the actual law enforcement side too. Because the two systems actually are one.
Yeah.
Would you expect the cost to go down in 2019 from the, because right now you're requesting a total of $230,000 for the 18 budget, so would it?
Well, I can tell you right now, I know that the initial big bump that I'm seeing is having to do with getting that, my understanding is having to get that new software upgraded and program in place and all of that stuff. I would think part of that big bump is would level off, but our user stuff is gonna remain high.
But it should go down some because most of this, or a lot of this.
I think it's the initial cost of the new system.
Yeah.
Is what
For the county overall?
Yeah.
The biggest cost will be here. So that upgrade will.
So a lot of this is a one-time cost.
Software.
Yeah.
Kevin's gonna be able to answer that, how it's gonna go.
Yeah, it's split up over 18 and 19. Yeah, and then it goes down to 20.
But when you look at this, you gotta look at it holistically. It's also for CAD, it's for JMS, it's for law enforcement records, it's the whole McGill.
Well, am I right in my assumption that there is one cost over in called BIPIN headquarters, okay, where equipment and software are being upgraded to serve everybody, and then there's this second substantial cost here locally in our facilities for stations and licenses to use it.
Which is right now combined.
Which, that's a combined number. But you are right, yes. What happened is, went from probably a half a dozen users in the jail to now over 50 users in the jail.
Right, and
It
I
goes
think
for
you
each
made
person
it
that
pretty
we
clear
hire.
that we didn't just go and add a whole bunch of people for kicks. We did it because that's what we needed to meet standards.
Yeah.
And the capital costs at BIPIN headquarters
That's a separate deal.
is going to be amortized over 3-4 years, does it sound like? 2020, you said, is when it?
18 and 19 is when the big contributions occur.
Okay.
And they'll purchase the system in 2019.
All right, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but those one-time amortization costs, most of that's borne on the counties, right?
Correct.
When you say on the counties, you're differentiating the county from the sheriff's department?
From the cities.
From the cities, okay.
Because you typically have more user stations and users because of the jails.
Commissioner, I don't know if this will help to answer your question at all, but this is one of the billings from 2017, and it shows a computer support number versus software maintenance amount that we have paid on it.
So Franklin County Jail, 15.7, 3100 software. So this looks like billings for hardware and software, not licenses and numbers of terminals, which is a different thing. Anyway, I think I've taken enough time on this. I'm happy to move on.
I had one question though, on this 140K, is that, you keep talking about annual budget, is that for 1 year or is that split out 70 a year?
No, that's for 1 year.
That's for 1 year.
That's
Okay.
for 1 year.
And
Okay,
what
'cause
I'm-
we're not talking apples and apples, we're talking about annual budget, but
Yeah, this is for 1 year, and I know that number may increase depending on, we just held one meeting and they were discussing about additional costs and stuff, so I really don't know, other than, I talked with Kevin and said, hey, what I put in for the budget, by what I'm hearing, is gonna double. And he said, yes.
Okay.
So, that's a concern on my part, because I don't have any control over that.
Yeah.
And that's just to upgrade that software.
Yeah, that's what I call the BIPIN headquarters piece.
Yeah.
And that's a 2-year hit,
Yeah,
and we don't know yet what that number is, so.
correct.
Okay.
I know they're looking at it, they're checking into it, at this point, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
We may know more after this next meeting.
550,
Yep.
page 37.
Yeah, we're already 9 minutes over because of all of Commissioner Miller's questions.
This one should take about no time at all. It's just contractual raises.
What page, John?
37, food service.
Okay. So, no, go ahead. Okay. Right now, I am, again, because I'm looking at trying to consolidate and save some money here, I'm putting out an RFP that basically is covering the commissary system and the food service system. When you bulk that stuff up, when you start looking at the products that they're selling or we're purchasing from correctional industries and all of that stuff, that if you bring somebody in off of a contract, you have a tendency to save money in the cost of food and the stuff that's getting distributed out there. So I'm looking at a package deal where I can save some money in both the commissary and in kitchen, and both with the products that are being there and what we've looked at so far, it looks like that we could save some money in our kitchen, as well as generate some more revenue in the commissary. So I'm just putting out the RFP right now, and I looked at, there's like 7 different organizations that are out there that are willing to jump on giving a bid, giving us a proposal for dealing with both of those as a contract. So I'm looking at it right now to see if we can save some money and also generate some revenue.
So where would the cost savings come from?
Cost savings are part of our purchasing of food service products itself, and maybe we can save on part of the staff costs.
So mostly product and some service staff time.
Correct. And it just saves on the time that we spend right now and some of that stuff, as far as commissary and handling and those kinds of things with staffing and what have you.
What about infrastructure?
Yep. Be more efficient. So we're looking at it.
So in other words, you're going to outsource bringing in the mills, all those types of things.
And they bring them in prepped the way an outside caterer would, so that facility costs and kitchens and maintenance and upgrade of those kinds of facilities over time could be.
Well, right now, it's what they would present to us. They may cook it right here on our campus with what we have in place. They may bring in their equipment, and it's a part of the package deal, and we're not paying for the maintenance part of that package, and they're covering that piece of their cost. So we're just looking at the total.
I don't know if it was
what they can present to us.
Ours, or if it was juvenile justice that went through this a number of years ago, that
with Aramark,
they couldn't bring it in from a distance because the temperature wouldn't stay up.
Yeah, but you can bring in frozen products and stuff like that. Like if they get built out of Airway Heights, you could bring it out frozen, keep it frozen, bring it in, and then put it in warmers inside your system and warm it up to those temperatures and stuff.
So when it's served, it's warm. But see, they were warming it up outside of the facility, packing it in, and it didn't pass the muster.
Yeah, you'd have a hard time keeping it at the hot temperatures that it's supposed to be and the cold temperatures that it's supposed to be while it's going to get served online.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line is to try to drive costs down while still trying to stay in compliance with calories.
Yeah. We've got a settlement agreement with you. All your religious meals and your dietary meals and all these other things that we have to take a look at and make sure that we're going to meet all those. So the settlement agreement is still in compliance and all that. So we're just looking at it right now and presenting it out there and see what we get.
Okay.
With the intention of returning back here and saying,
here's a contract.
Well, and here's what I was trying to drill down on. I've got a little bit of experience in the catering world and off-site food service and prep and all that kind of stuff. And the kitchen that we've got constructed probably isn't going to be a whole lot of use to them. And so I'm happy to hear that your RFP is going to include the potential for them to make modifications to it.
Yep.
Once you get things reworked to fit that kind of a system, you kind of lock yourself into it also. So we'd want, I would think we would want a fairly long-term arrangement, and as much as possible having them cover the costs of any sort of retrofitting that's necessary.
Yes, sir.
Because they don't want to retrofit and have the cost unless there's a long-term payback, and we don't want to have to change it back later, so.
Right now, the only thing that we're looking at as far as adding equipment is to actually put a stove in there that's not there. I'm
Yeah.
shocked that we don't have a stove in a kitchen, but.
Yeah, well, just to cut to the bottom line, what I'm saying is as much of that as we can get them to do
Yeah.
in return for a longer-term contract seems to make sense, but anyway.
Yep.
I appreciate
We'll be looking at it.
the direction. I think it makes good sense.
I had 60 dispatch.
That means I'm out.
Well, that's kind of a trifold deal, I think, Rick, we'll make Rick sad.
Yeah.
So while we're getting ready for that, for dispatches, Rick is kind of doing the operations of our dispatch center right now, some of the financial pieces, and then Ronell is also doing some of the financial pieces while we go through whatever process we're going through. So hopefully between the three of us we can answer any questions.
We pretty much didn't change anything. Just trying to get through until the consolidation, which we don't have a specific date for. And then everything will change.
I'm guessing basically, again, it's just mostly or mainly contractual differences, salaries, benefits. Okay, well, that was easy.
So what about upgrade maintenance for VHF radio systems? Would that be in this account, or is that going to be over in IS, or where would that come up?
911 fund. Yes, 911 is a capital fund.
Okay. Because we're still going to have to do that, right?
That's something.
That is my understanding. My understanding is Franklin County will maintain ownership of our VHF system and our operating platforms. Yes. And I think the answer is partially yes, so it would be IS. That's where the position's at for that meeting.
It's like T-ball. I just set them up there for you. Took you longer to swing than I expected.
Do all of the revenues for E911, the taxes that are charged on cell phone landlines, those currently come to the county, and then because we will no longer have a PSAP presumably after June, July of next year, does that mean we no longer collect those revenues? Or can we still charge for some of the dispatch law enforcement services?
It's my understanding that the tax money that we bring in is for call taking. It's not for radio. It's not for dispatching. It's for call receiving, 911 call receiving.
And that's been committed to the state.
What's that?
That enhanced 911 money's been committed to the state.
It goes to the state and then it's passed.
Right.
So that'll go to support call taking, not radio. We've got it. And the user fees we've been charging, we've been using some of that for radio, but we won't be having user fees in the future unless we create a system for that, for the radio system specifically.
What other users will be on our VHF radio system besides some outlying law enforcement?
Connell PD and All Fire.
And so will they be joining us in supporting that system?
That would be my hope.
That's what we're going to have to do. We have to come up with some sort of a system for that, yeah.
So there's some work to be done.
Yeah, Port Pasco Police, Franklin County Sheriff's Office, and Connell, and
Fire?
Fire just,
And all the volunteer fires and hospital districts and everything up top, up north.
Pasco Fire and the ambulance district up north,
Right.
Yeah.
quite a few users.
I would assume Pascal will be out of that equation because unless I'm missing it, they're doing some sort of a thing with I refer to it as a fire star chamber over here they have some system, the fire system. How do you explain that? What you have is you have all the fire chiefs locally that are paid fire departments. They're going to have this incident command radio set up that they're going to be responsible for paying whatever for that infrastructure and licenses, et cetera, et cetera. Meaning I assume that the other VHF license will stay in the county's name. Right now they're in the sheriff's name, but it doesn't matter. It's half done with other county-owned frequencies that we'll have to maintain licenses on, and then we're going to have to somehow figure out how to continue maintenance and upgrading infrastructure. It's probably going to come from those that are going to be on the system.
It's going to have to be user-based.
Yeah, it's going to have to be user-based, and we're going to be the lion's share of that user-based.
You think some of the other fire departments will go on off of VHF? Because I know they don't like it, especially going out on mutual aids, because, if they leave town, leave the CCOM area, for instance.
No, their radio systems that they currently are on will still exist, and they will just essentially be patched from this side of the river to that side of the river. They won't notice anything. They're actually going to, what they will see is an increase in available frequencies to use in that whole fire incident command thing they got going on. But they're not going to see anything different as far as radio service goes. Now, what they're concerned about, and rightfully so, is their cost, because prior to all this, basically the county bore those costs for those agencies, I guess is the way to put it. Even though it's not a lot, to be honest with you, the radio traffic that they use, but law enforcement has to rely on this side of the river on our VHF platforms, at least for the immediate near future.
But you don't see the full-time fire departments on this side of the river using our VHF at all?
Yeah, they're going to use the Pascal, whatever Pascal Fire has license-wise, they would be using some of that and solo there across the river. Yes.
Okay.
Walla Walla?
Walla Walla will still be involved, yes. But they will be, they don't use our system, our infrastructure, but they use our services, so they'll be paying CCOM versus us. Yep. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Gets confusing sometimes.
Well, and that's the reason I say that is because that's what fire has fought forever, because like I say, they leave town and nobody else in the area, go up to Okanagan or wherever you're going to go, has got these high-end radios. They're going to be all running VHF.
Right.
Past fire over in Benton County, they went to the 800 originally, but they went right back to VHF.
Right, that's what I'm
Fire
getting.
has no interest in going to 800. So all of our VHF systems by county are going to be interconnected, so that the fire department, a county fire department in Benton County can be up in Helotes and be communicating.
Right.
They're all going to be on the same stuff.
Yeah, that's always been a concern with fire, as far as being able to communicate on the town.
Probably we're going to be responsible as a county for the physical facilities, the antennas in Colonis, and so on and so on. We are going to have to keep those up and maintain them.
Right.
I don't think the county gave them up in any way, if memory serves me correctly.
No, on the contrary, I think it was pretty clear that they said that's on you guys.
It's on you guys.
somebody is paying for the VHF systems on that side of the river.
Yes,
And-
the fires, the fire departments.
Yeah, I was avoiding saying that out loud, but
Oh, that's okay.
there are folks on that side of the river that are absorbing that cost, and whatever model and contract they're using might be something for us to at least review as a starting point. Because I think we need to mirror what they're doing probably, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is it'll make it more readily acceptable to people on this side, harder to refute if it's sort of a regional standard.
And the VHF system's kind of piecemeal, is the way for me to put it. For example, the city of Connell owns a tower and a license on the VHF side of things, and then Franklin County owns the law, and so on and so on, so it's kind of all over the board. But we have I forget his name in place, the new Mike Namtech, Brian, that maintains our system through IS, so IS probably, bottom line, the answer is probably IS.
But we do need to figure out funding for radio.
And then I would suggest you don't give up any licensing that are in,
No.
if you have a frequency and license that's in the Franklin County Sheriff's name, I'd leave it right there for now. Whatever's in place, I wouldn't sell any licenses, is what I'm saying.
Wouldn't sell any code or anything
Until it
else.
all shakes out,
All right, there's really nothing we can discuss too much on dispatch until things happen.
Yeah.
Just the 1229 line on page 38. It says interfund 139 state reimbursement salary, I think it is SEL. I see that going to 16 from 100,000 to 18 at 336,000. Just trying to get a little better idea of what that is.
That's the director. Is that it?
I don't know. My book doesn't match theirs.
Look here. Which page are you on, please?
I'm on page 38, line 1229.
I think we use that historically to balance between the dispatch revenues and expenditures. If there's a gap there, then we transfer it in from the 139 fund.
And is that the state 911 reimbursement off of the
Yes.
off the 911 taxes?
So there's probably a balance in between the two.
Well,
Yeah, well, it's not, they're not,
I
they're
don't,
not equal.
yeah, I don't see how
Historically,
that's,
we've done that balance here.
It's, I mean, it's the same as what it was in 17, that's what was carried forward into 18, it's carried.
Just carrying it over.
We just carried the numbers over. It could change.
well, yeah, the 16 actual was 100,000. The 17 is just a budget number. I mean, where are we in 17 on this number is probably the right question.
We usually calculate this after year end, yearly, whatever, CPI.
I'm just trying to figure out why we think we're going to get 236,000 more than we did last year. We're running a little bit behind. I can chase that down later.
Okay, on to security. $580, page 40.
Got it. That's it. The whole security.
That's it.
Did your security contract go up by 7,700, Rick, or what?
Part of it was the security contract for the services, and then we had the thing with Moon Security for the monitoring of evidence rooms.
The what?
Moon Security contract, monitor evidence rooms. I put that into contract security services. We'd entered into a 3-year agreement for monitoring alarms. Last year we installed alarm systems in the evidence rooms for the clerk's office and the sheriff's office. And this is putting the monitoring fees into my line item, in addition to the change in the hourly rates for Tri-City monitoring. So those two things in combination are the increase.
Questions?
Just trend data, as I said, I look at the 15, 16 compared to the 18, and we're 300% on the travel and training line. Is that because we've combined some lines?
What? On security?
Page 40, line 1285.
Page 40, line 12.
$1,500?
Yeah, it's not the amount, it's the fact that we've tripled it from 16 and looking at trend data.
16 is, in the 16 column is actual spent, not budgeted.
Okay.
1,500 has always been the budgeted amount.
Or does it look like travel and training is together?
It is in my budget, and in some budgets it's separate, but in the security budget it's combined.
Travel and training is about
1,100.
1,001.
1,001.
It's split out on two different lines. Yeah, I saw the 510. I'm saying, okay, we're tripling it from the 16 actual, so there should be some sort of a notice to.
I've always had just one line item, so I'm not sure why there's two there now.
Yeah. So is 1,500 the right number? I mean, is that adequate for the training that you need to do?
1,500 is correct and accurate.
Okay,
adequate.
and so this training for this position is separated out from other training in the sheriff's department because it's different than what all the other sheriff's department folks get?
No, it was separated out, money-wise, it was separated out because my entire salary is out of this particular budget.
Okay.
No other reason other than that. It was created that way is all.
But all right.
The only other thing I put in there was insurance, and I get insurance bills every year. Never had any line item to take them out of. So.
And what kind of insurance are we talking about?
It's comes from the commissioner's office. It's
is it employee liability insurance?
service insurance that we bill out to the departments. And we get the master bill and separate that out to the department.
Okay. And you said the 7762 was Moon Security for the evidence room, right?
part of that was.
Yes, for the evidence rooms, both in the sheriff's office and in the clerk's, rear clerk's office.
Yeah, I just.
There wasn't anything else in that number, it's just those evidence rooms?
Right, just evidence rooms, and then, like I say, we have the contract with Tri-City Monitoring, which those fees increased a bit. So between those two things, that's what the increase is.
So this also includes some Tri-City monitoring expense.
Right, I just lumped the Moon Security contract in with the Tri-City Monitoring contract for contract security services.
Okay, thanks.
Fire marshal is under whose purview now? Is that yours, Keith?
Well, I guess so. Because we kind of kicked it around, but yes, there was no request for any changes for the prior year. The building and the fire inspector when we get those.
So then that won't be in with the dispatch stuff anymore? How was it? Dispatch?
No, that's not a dispatch.
It wasn't.
It's been bounced all over the courthouse.
Yeah, the only time I saw anything on it was to approve payroll or something. We really don't have.
Was it the sheriff? Where was the fire marshal guy at?
He did that, so.
I think the last time he was somewhere. Yeah, he's somewhere.
Yeah.
Your budget? Okay, that's fine.
Realistically, they should be with.
Who is the guy?
He's kind of an army of one.
Fictitious name out there. Yeah.
I'm not even sure I met the guy.
Yeah. And who's got civil service? That's HR. Yeah. Where's the phone? I think that wraps us up.
Look down for a minute, the room just cleared out. It's like they were anxious to leave. What's that? All right, pull another chair up there. There's room, I think.
Come on, guys. On up here if you need to.
We're all out of candy.
No candy, no apples.
Kiwis, did you go down to your office?
I've been up here all day.
There's
You've imported some Aussies?
Keith delivered kiwis this midday.
They were delivered.
Yeah. They're
Karen's desk, I think. I'm not sure she even seen them yet.
Kiwis. Where were these kiwis grown?
They were actually grown in Benton County by a Franklin County grower. Gwen sent them over for you guys. They're a different kiwi. You actually eat the whole thing. You don't peel it or anything like that. I ate one of them, so there is one not accounted for. And if you guys go to account for that later, there is one missing.
So you eat the whole thing, kind of like a Cosmic Crisp.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It depends on. Probably don't want to eat the seeds, but yeah, they're tiny. They're like grape size.
We wouldn't really know about Cosmic Crisp, though, would we?
Yeah. You have one.
Not a lot of personal experience with those.
You have had them.
The rumor is that we saw one here once.
You did. They came into the office. There was
What year was that?
Yeah.
15 or 16, yeah. I think a small flat came to our office. Most of those made out of our office.
Yeah.
That's kind of odd how this works. Last one, but it's the first page.
I know. Thanks for rescheduling. I had a meeting out of town that came up.
Oh, that's why.
I had to go
Yeah,
to.
but it's okay. Easy fine.
We figured you'd have a lot of money left over at the end, so.
Well, don't tell the sheriff, but the whole day today, we've just been looking at the numbers talking, because there is no money.
Right, I kind of figured, you'd see the big negative up there, but.
Yeah.
I was hoping you wouldn't cut the last one that came in the door to make it balance.
No, it was the last three.
The last three. Where would you like to start on this?
Well, they highlight us the revenues, which are pretty basic.
Yeah. No change on that, yeah. So those are just the publications we resell in the office for people, like pesticide education manuals and stuff like that.
Yeah. And of course, the salaries and benefits are I think you talked to us before about putting some more help on, or part-time help on.
So now I always get confused on this. So we have the county employee part and the WSU employee part. You talking about the county employee part right now? Yeah, okay, sorry. So on the county side, we did ask for a revision to add part of an FTE, add to an FTE that we currently have in the office. So we have an office manager right now, and then we have a program support specialist at 0.8 or 80% FTE, and we'd asked to increase that to to a full FTE. And if you kind of look at the numbers of people that work out of our office, full-time employees, and then part-time employees, the office staff has increased significantly in the last 10 years. And we just need a little bit more help there to keep up with the workload in the office. That person currently is a county employee 80% of the time, and my program has been paying that person 20% of the time as a WSU employee through grants for the last 2 or 3 years. Those 1.5 years we've been doing that. So, anyways, we're hoping that the county can make up that difference there.
So I can understand why you'd like us to do that. And we were kind of thinking maybe 50-50.
Yeah.
So what's the logic for the county picking up the other 20%?
Well, that person serves every faculty member in the office and everybody that comes in the door. So a lot of that person's time is working on 4-H. They work with the other youth and family programs. They work for my program. They basically they work on everything in the office. So like I said, my program solely has picked up a portion of that because grant funding has been pretty good to me the last few years. And but I think it would be more appropriate that this was spread out across all programs because the person really is working on all programs. I think that's probably the most appropriate way to fund that type of position.
So are you saying that 100% of this person's time is spent on county-related programs?
Well, yeah, programs affecting Franklin County residents, yes. So traditionally, that's been a part-time position, but if you look at the...
I guess by the same logic, we would pay the full freight on all the positions. If the standard is, if the program or the position has a beneficial impact on the people of Franklin County,
well, if you'd like to pay a bigger percentage of the WSU positions, we're totally open to that if that's what you're suggesting.
Well, let's be clear, it's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm saying is that the standard that you applied, which is we should pay, you'd like us to pay 100%, and the logic is because 100% of this person's time is related to programs that are beneficial to Franklin County. It's an indirect compliment that 100% of what you do is beneficial to Franklin County, but that's not an appropriate standard to determine how much we pay. If it were, we'd pay 100% of the whole program.
Sure.
No,
I understand
the
point you're making.
We have the Sheriff's Department that has survived a rather protracted and expensive class action lawsuit, and we've got a whole list of new positions that we have to fund there that are court ordered. So we're up against a pretty tall wall.
Sure, this definitely isn't a court-ordered thing, but like I said, we've had I think our programming, if you look at the amount of programming we've done over the last 10 years, there's been a big increase in the amount of programming we do. The grant funding that comes into the office that supports these community outreach activities has gone up precipitously as well.
So I'm looking all over this. Where are we seeing this increase?
So this would be, what is the barcode?
On our front page 1. Is that, so we're talking, well, the salary and everything's automatic. So we're looking at the 368 on top. Okay, salary and wages. It's not increased like everybody else's on the red.
Well, they're asking for extra FTE.
That's an ask.
Okay.
They want to change this person from, I think, 8 FTE.
So it's an additional 7,300.
That's right.
So additional. Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
8,900 including benefits.
Oh yeah. Okay. So all that's the new person. Okay.
Yep.
I got it. I thought that was just the addition to it because of the increases, but yeah, it's getting late in the day for me.
That's what it is.
So that's going from the 2016 actual of 66,275 to an 18 request of 78.5 plus the 89. So that'd be 87, 88. So from 66 to 88.
Well, the 89.63 includes the 73.
I get that. The 78,562, Tom, does that include the 89.63?
Just the 73.53 portion of it. So there's about $1,500 of other benefits.
It's 78,562.
Not included, is that number? You'd have to add the 78,562 plus 73.53 to get to salaries of 85,915 if approved. The total salaries and benefits, if approved, would be the 120,285 plus the 89.63 gets you to 129,248.
So in the red box, the other numbers, the 563, 934, 53, and 60, those are all adders on that one position.
Correct.
So why are we only adding 7353 and not the full 8963?
7353 is just the salaries part of it.
Right.
The other are the benefits.
Right. Yeah, and so I'm looking at the total cost of the request, which is
Total cost of the request is 8963.
Okay.
And that's not added in anywhere. That's just a red want.
That's just an ask. Yeah. Okay.
Or ask. Not a want. It's the same thing.
Tom, where's the bottom line number on this fund? Is it the 242,509?
Yes.
And is
2008 baseline.
that including anything in the 2018 requests?
Only internal transfers that balance to zero. But no, there's no additional increase.
Okay, none of those greens or reds are incorporated in this.
The greens are.
The greens are. That's what I was wondering. Okay, 242.5. So it's a 10% increase over 16 before adding the reds. 224.7 versus 242.5. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions? That wraps us up.
So, did you want us to go through the attachment A form that we submitted as well? Do you have any other questions?
Okay.
Yes, I know.
Well, I wasn't here for some of the earlier budget stuff. I was out of town, but I thought that these had already been addressed because they showed up as greens on this sheet. The 368 or 367.34 it looks like it's already been addressed on here.
I don't think we discussed any of these previously, have we?
What we did, since the budget is adopted as not a line item level, if you transferred 1,000 from like 31.1 to 31.2, with the net effect of 0.
Oh, okay.
Is a green.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize that.
At all, or if it decreased it, we would let you do that as well.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of those automatically got approved, but there were 2 professional services agent salary lines. One was green, one was red.
And it was just, the reason why there's a split there is because if you add up all the green, they're offset at 0. And then, so it's just a 368 that add to the budget on the non-salaries and benefits.
Same with the office and operating supplies. So really the only question for us to take into the next round for consideration is the additional staffing fund.
Right. Thank you.
That was quick. Do I still get to have a piece of candy, or I can share it?
Might be a.
No, I'd be taking the kids trick or treating. I don't think we need any.
Might be a dry spot left over up there.
Yeah.
Bob, did you tell him you have a fatal allergy to kiwis?
Sign the budget for us, pray for the kiwis. They have the same proteins as the standard kiwis. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
When do we reconvene there, Mr. Commissioner?
Whenever we find some more money.
Okay, so then I guess this process, this calendar, we're ready to adjourn, is that right?
We are. Adjourn the preliminary budgets.